about half and half. 5 years ago, I got into the city of Gonzales as a full-time community development director, and now here I am. I've staffed numerous planning commissions, and other boards, and worked as a planner for the city of Carmel, where I spent a lot of time in the mills. Prior to that, I was working for Carmel and San Juan Bautista in the 2000s, 2000 to 2010. I think it was about 2009, we created the San Juan Bautista 3rd Street Historic District, officially proclaimed by the feds. And lots of staff reports over the years in all different capacities, secret documents, and also staff reports on development projects for various agencies that I've worked for. My very first scribe job, my very first secretary job was 1969, Troop 915, Atlanta Area Council of the American Boy Scouts. I had to say that. Other than that, I don't think I need to say anything more, but I want to close out with, thank you very much. I look forward to playing with you guys, working with you guys.
Well, welcome. Thank you, Matthew. And I also wanted to introduce Fernanda. And she will be taking over from Natisha's role as tech support. So we're happy to have her helping out as well. And of course, wanted to thank Natisha for the excellent work that she's done.
Natisha,
Thank you all.
You've been so marvelous and so patient with us, and you've kept a good attitude through every little communication crisis we had. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful working with you all. But you're in great hands with Fernanda.
We look forward to it, Fernanda.
Fingers crossed. I have big shoes to fill. I'm excited to work with everybody.
Okay, we also, Annie, do you have any other introductions? We also have some guests with us today. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, Mark Connolly. I met with you all last meeting, so this is the second or third meeting, I think, too. So good to see you all again on the principle and policy. And
Welcome back.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
He's my boss.
I'm Virginia Wright. I live in Felton Grove neighborhood next to the Covered Bridge Park. And I just wanted to say a few words about the fun track. And see, I feel like I'm not going to say much, but I do want to say a few.
Yeah, we will give you a moment.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that's completed introductions. Now can we do a roll call? Okay, please. Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Newhouse.
Here.
Commissioner Orlando.
Here.
Commissioner Burton.
Here.
Commissioner Perlman here. We're in full complete attendance. Thank you everyone for putting the time aside for the meeting. And we also have 2 analysts and staffers with us today. Annie Murphy, who this will be her last meeting before her retirement, and Matthew Sun, who is replacing her. I was privileged to meet with both of them together and very enthusiastic about a seamless transition and a great working environment with Matthew, continuing the good vibe we have from working with him. So thank you, everybody. Okay, meeting is called to order. In front of us, we have the minutes that were issued and published according to the Brown Act. And I'm wondering whether there's any commentary on the minutes from last meeting. Yes, Louis.
The executive director of law, Rob Wolf is spelled wrong. It's W-O-U-L-F-E.
Number of that, please. So
Number D.
D, thank you. Wolf with an E at the end.
No, W-O-U-L-F-E.
Oh, okay.
Very odd to me.
Let's
Just
get it
figure
right.
out the spelling.
Let's get it right. Thank you for that. Any other adjustments or corrections to the minute? Okey-doke, on that basis, may I call for a vote on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve? Thank you, Kevin. Second. Thank you, Lucia. Okay, Commissioner Phillips. How do you vote for the minutes?
Aye.
Commissioner Newhouse. Commissioner Rolando.
Aye.
And Commissioner Burns.
Abstain.
Very good. Okay, we've got a pass. She wasn't for the last meeting. She can't vote in the minutes. Love that. Thank you. That's very alert also. So just as a point of order for anyone new to our meetings, based on how public meetings are conducted, we go through a roll call vote on every item. So thank you, everyone. Minutes are approved. Okay. Ex parte communications. This is the part of the meeting where commissioners disclose any written communications and or any site visits that are relevant to applications on the agenda. So regarding written and oral communications, I have received 2 notes from Susan in San Lorenzo Valley, who's our guest today, Virginia Wright. So I'm submitting these to our staffers. The 2 notes are both on the subject of the Felton Covered Bridge, which is a designated historic site. And the notes address a current process that is happening at the Covered Bridge Park, which is the installation of a pump track, a project that's been funded by the Santa Cruz Mountain Trail Association. That's what we call it. And they have raised the funds. They have given those funds to the county Parks Department. And the county Parks Department is moving forward with a plan to install a pump track in the park. The issue at hand is that we have a historic site, the bridge, but it is not a historic park. The only part of a park that's got historic designation is the bridge. And
I think we want to verify that first, actually. I don't know that for a fact, but I think, oftentimes the designation does apply to the entire parcel, in which case new construction would require review by the HRC if it is on that parcel, unless there's some sort
well,
of.
then I think that that's the essential point that is going to generate what future life this subject will hold for our commission. So if I could request clarification on that, would you be going to county council for that one?
Well, it'll probably be involved more research and looking at the listing and the National Register for the property, this is in the National Register.
Okay, I perceive that we're going to find that the Covered Bridge Park is not a historic site, but let's suss it out because we can't take any position on it until we know that.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yeah.
Pump track. I was fortunate enough this morning on the way to work to listen to an interview with Matthew DeYoung of this organization that does all the trail work. And he explained, he defined what a pump track is. It's not so much pedaling. It's more about this sort of stuff and getting momentum and taking advantage of the ripple layout of the track. And there's something similar to that on the south side of Highway 1 southbound, like near Park Avenue, I believe.
Yes, correct.
So you look at that, I don't know what the size of that is. Is that 10,000 square feet? I don't know, but that's basically a pump track.
Yes, so
It's an advanced skateboard park is the way I think of it myself. Kind of a mondo skateboard park, because when you're on bikes, you need more height and more depth to get the momentum.
Skateboards and scooter type of gizmos. Yeah. So now you have a basic idea.
yeah, I mean, I guess this is probably
Okay.
later on the agenda in the sense that we have a written communication from Nathan Goodman on the same topic, but yeah, I did just want to say unless there's something specific saying that designation applies only to the structure, not the site, and typically the site would be considered historic or it should, new construction should refer
I
to.
will note that we have been through this once in the past, and my personal thoughts in this area are that we will discover that the park is not designated historic. The Rogers House has a historic designation, both national and county. And, in order to give it the designation, we had to use the parcel number for the Rogers House at the fairgrounds. However, that exact same parcel number is shared by the racetrack and the 1950s barns and the vendors area where the food is. And those are clearly not historic designations. So it was determined that although the Rogers House is designated, that the fairgrounds board had the right to modify properties around it and tear down those agriculture barns built in the 1950s. So based on that as my example, I'm presuming a parallel situation that we will discover, but we don't know what the exact designation is, which is where I think you're coming in.
Yeah,
Is that it may have been designated.
yeah, and the Rogers House was a little bit unique because it was actually moved to that parcel too. So
Yes, it was.
So in that sense, it really was really more about.
Did it have a designation before it was at that parcel?
I don't recall, but anyway, yeah, we'll certainly look into this.
Okay, so we will be deferring this for further reporting by staff to update us. Once we have the update, we'll be able to determine what our go forward options are.
Was there a blueprint of the pump track? Like in terms of how close it would be and if it would affect the bridge?
Well, the effect that the pump track has on the bridge is a view perspective as you're approaching the park.
Okay.
Coming from, Roaring.
Mhm.
You're going to now see the pump track before you see the bridge.
Okay.
Okay, but, the other way of looking at it is, kids in San Lorenzo Valley don't get to ride their bikes very far because of Highway 9. So by putting it in Covered Bridge Park, one could say that you're putting it in town, accessible to the kids. Who knows? There's a lot of positions. Right now, we don't take any position.
Right.
Thank you, for, in advance for the upcoming work. I think I'll thank you, Matthew, because Andy's handing it to you to do.
Okay,
But I think that the clarification first, and then we determine what the range of options are from that.
Yeah, there's a process for new construction on this sort of site, if it is, and we apply to the site that we cover the commission or criteria that applies, so.
And we admire the project and we admire the perspective of people protecting the site, both. The human dialectic, two opposing thoughts can both be true. So here's a good example. And Virginia, thank you for attending as a guest.
mhm.
And may I hand Virginia's letter to you for both letters? Oh, I think you have a copy for your files.
And I believe you distributed that to the commission, or you sent it.
Yeah.
No, he distributed the other letter from Mr. Goodman. Is the one that we received.
Just got one last night.
Yes, right, so the email information could have been we received earlier, so I was able to include that in the packet, but I believe that Matthew sent that out as late, of course.
Oh, did you send out?
Yes, I did, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, good.
on Friday, yeah.
Since I had already read it, I just whisked by it.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's, shall we move forward, friends?
So ex parte communications, is this relevant to only site visits that are on today's agenda or previous agendas?
It's typically related to any item on the agenda, site visits or other communications regarding an item on the agenda or its agenda.
I was invited to speak at the World War I memorial on the side of Freedom Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that would be.
That would be reasonable because that has been an agenda
It
item
was on
and we had
previous
discussed it.
stuff.
Yes. So let's honor that. Why don't you?
You don't think that'd be number 10?
Let's take a quick, look, okay? Yes, let's save it for number 10.
Great.
Very good.
Ex parte communications is just a brief one sentence line and you're out of there. It's.
Okay. Completing number 4, unless anyone has any further business there, let's move to number 5. And we have Virginia here, who would like to say a few words. Virginia, we offer you 3 minutes to speak, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And I loved watching all that because my background is in public art planning and I've done a lot of advocacy work for the Friends of the Trail on Trail and Mill on Heath. And I have also worked with to get the water district purchased by the local utility from the corporation that owned it before. So I've been involved in these processes and this was a very well done so far meeting and with friendliness and I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you all for this. I live next door to the Covered Bridge Park. I walk through the Covered Bridge almost daily to the stores. And
Lucky you.
I know, I love it. And what I see there is profound. It's just, yes, this weekend, there was a quinceañera. And I've seen them there before as well as weddings and they have dance. It's well used, this bridge. It's an active use all the time. But the quinceañera, they have it on the bridge and then they walk into the park. And this is also something I see where they stand on the grass and then they stand and they take pictures of both the activity on the bridge and then the view, because the view is so beautiful from the bridge itself. The park's in active use and that bridge is a part of that. So I just wanted to come to you all and say, isn't there, because it's a historic resource, well-used historic resource, isn't there a relationship that this body has to protecting that? And it's not just the view corridors, which are outlined in these 2 plans that currently manage, they created the park, the community process created the park. And some of the people are still around, objecting to me. But they created the park and the view corridors were a main element. So when you come off from the hill and you come in from the valley, you see the covered bridge. It's really important. So I get that unless the whole park is covered by historic, that it won't be up for you to look at again. The pump track, just to answer some of your questions, the current unmaintained sand volleyball pit, I call it, does collect water, so it has a purpose, but it's not been maintained and they're bringing in this 10,000, the volleyball court is 2,500 square feet. They're bringing in a 10,000 square foot pump track that is larger than the entire covered bridge area. So it'd be the largest thing in the park. It's I believe, changing the nature of the park from a historic landmark and open space to sports, which is a choice that we could make as a community, but we didn't get to make the choice. We were told by the parks director, it's his decision. He got the money from the nonprofit, the Trail Stewards. I guess the money's been raised. That's the first time I heard that it was raised already. But they definitely have an agreement. There was no public process. They brought the Trail Stewards in at the beginning before they told the community it was happening. They spent a year planning and then informed us that this was happening. So I stand for public process and that's why I'm here and that's why I went to all of the meetings and that's why I'm still involved. So that was good timing.
You can see both hands.
And thank you again for your service.
Yeah.
Virginia, thank you very much for the positive spirit that you bring us towards us with.
Well, I don't want to be, I'm not against a pump.
Yeah, right,
No one's
right,
against it.
right.
We love that.
Question about these documents.
Yes.
Were both of them included in your email or just one of them?
No, just the covered bridge part.
Right.
Let me see this one real quick.
This one they're old.
Felton Town.
That's what he says. They're so old, we're not gonna pay attention to them anymore.
Right. And what's the date on this one when you had it in?
This is 93. No, this one is I don't know. I don't know the date on this one, but it's 93. So they're old.
Yeah, we have the Fountain Town plan as part of our county record, so I could talk to you afterwards then.
Yeah, so anyway, just in the future, hope that the decisions were made with a public process, but.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, thank you. And I know working in public art, I know that historic is also the, the low person on the totem pole often, and I just really appreciate it because I think it's so important.
Well, I would like to just clarify something there to Annie, that if it is determined that the park is not historic, still, and they go ahead with the pump track, they would still come to our board as part of the planning process to make sure that any damage would be mitigated toward the bridge. So we would be involved in part of the process, not beginning to end, but part, if the park is determined not to be historic. Am I saying the right thing or not?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, typically, if it is on the same parcel, unless there's some kind of exception, it does apply to the whole site, and there is county regulations. I mean, I'll talk about it with park staff later, but there are county regulations that would apply to new construction on the site, but certainly, I think either way, it probably just makes sense to have the HRC involved,
But is it too late for HRC to be involved? We're already going to the Parks Commission tonight, and we're going to the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. None of this has been brought to the HRC in any formal way. I don't think any one of these plans references historic designation.
going to the Board of Supervisors tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
so. Water and bridge. Color bridge. So there you have it. And I don't want to continue, I just want to point out Brown Act on this particular subject. You take her testimony.
Comments?
Take your comments and then acknowledge that we received them. And as far as continuing discussion, I think technically Brown Act says, shut it off, shut down the conversation.
Right, I mean, we do.
And we can
Yeah.
put it under number 12.
Right, we do have that letter from David going, so.
Thank you. I've got to run to work, but I want to thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mark, did you have anything or are you here to observe?
Just here to observe, listen, and offer whatever I can, so.
We're thrilled to have you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 5 has been completed. Let's move on to our consent items, and I do not know of any for this meeting. Does anyone have any other consent items that we're unaware of? Okay, we'll get that. Public hearing items, and nothing's been brought to us for that. So we move into new business. Okay, in your packet, you received a proposal of dates for the 4 quarterly meetings of the Historic Resources Commission for 2024. Okay, I will note that as part of the protocol.
And why do you have that?
Yeah, the reason I gave it to you is because it's got all the holidays on it.
Yeah.
So when you select a date, we're not gonna run into holidays.
Excellent. And I also did a review for religious holidays and such that might not be public holiday.
Right,
You
right.
see,
Good call.
you're clear on all dates.
So I think I sent an email out about potential dates, January 22 or 29, April 1 or 8, but then April 1 is a conflict date, and that's because it's Cesar Chavez Day, county building is closed. So that puts us to April 8. And July, we can go July 1 or July 8, depending on how you guys see your holiday schedule around Independence Day week. And then October 7th seems to be clear.
Okay, so I sent you my date,
That's right.
so you didn't get anybody else's, so we're here working out the days.
He actually said not to respond, Linda.
Well, he's not, well, not to respond to everybody.
You came back the 22nd of January, I think. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we go through the 4 dates and take a quick rally from everybody, okay? Regarding the date of January 22nd, how many people like that date? Great, January 22nd it is. regarding April 8th. How many people like April 8th? Okay, we've got April 8th as a date. This is not an item that needs to be voted on, so I think that the show of hands works in this conversation. Okay, for July, we have the 1st and the 8th. How many prefer the 1st? Interesting. How many prefer the 8th?
I'm good either way.
Yeah, for me, it was either way.
Shall we make it the 8th?
Do you have a conflict with Jan?
Yeah, it's my wedding anniversary.
Which?
On the 5th.
Oh.
So I don't know if we would,
You could go wait before or after, huh?
yeah, actually the 8th would be fine. I'd
Okay.
probably go away.
Okay, Andy, the 8th it is. Oh. And then can we confirm, as October 7th good with everyone? Show of hands, please. Great, I believe we have 4 dates, January 22nd, April 8th, July 8th, and October 7th.
And then it should have a motion for this, for the bylaw.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to propose those 4 dates formally?
I make a motion to accept the 4 dates agreed upon by the commission,
Which is again,
I have a question, but I can wait after.
for our 2024, meeting schedule.
Very good, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? I think we've done our deed here. All in favor, Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Newhouse. Aye. Commissioner Orlando.
Aye.
And Commissioner Burton.
Aye.
Commissioner Perlman, aye. We have a unanimous acceptance. We have our 4 dates scheduled. I will note for you that the April meeting is the re-election of officers and the, how do we call it? The confirmation, the annual confirmation, like we did the process last year where the county clerk comes in.
Oh,
That's done annually.
I don't. He does, and also it's just for new commissioners. Yeah.
Okay, so we have to do that for Emily.
Right.
And that, does that have to be done at the meeting?
It's supposed to be done ASAP.
I believe, Emily, will you already sworn in?
I'm going to do it today.
Okay, great, yeah, they do it right,
Okay.
when it's commissioned, we don't have to do it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, that's excellent.
Unless Mark wants to do it. Are you an ordained minister? Can you?
Sure, a second. Excuse me, it's Hanukkah. We need a rabbi. Thank you for the good joke. All right, let's see if we can get this group down to some serious business here. Please, go ahead.
To the dates, I might be, out of state for the April meeting. And potentially, no, the April meeting. Is it allowable for me to call in? Or do?
Under the new updated Brown Act, I have to look, I can talk to you afterwards, unless the commission wants to think about a different date, but there's certain rules when commissioner allowed to participate remotely, and they're pretty constrained, but I can check on that, or, you know, the commission could decide to meet later in the month, but.
Well, actually, I'm going to be helping out a family member with, childcare for a few months.
Oh, gotcha,
So
okay,
it's not,
okay, okay,
it's one of those.
Yeah, we'll check.
Work.
we'll check on that, yeah, right now.
If possible, we'll get you a remote linkage.
I would prefer that, but I do know that there's all
And,
kinds of.
and it's okay, it's okay if you need to miss a meeting. And just to say that to everyone
Right.
openly, it's okay if you need to miss a meeting.
And it's gonna be via the owl here that we have, if you're on site somewhere.
Right, yeah, it's just there's some Brown Act rules about what exceptions, it has to be like meet certain exception criteria, I don't remember.
We know
being
that,
at-
we know illness is one that they accept.
Right,
We don't know what other conditions they accept. It may be out of town if you're more than 300 miles away or something like that. So, you know, we'll find out.
I think it may qualify, but I'd have to double check.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So let's see, new business item B, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Newhouse from Aptos, who has an update for us on the Aptos History Museum. And in the spirit of our growing commission, We are trying to network with all historical museums in the county and have a networking process where we're all working harmoniously together, which is part of what Kevin brings to the table for us because he's been involved in the Aptos Museum for a long time. So this is a very important update. I'm glad to have it. Kevin?
Thank you. So I started taking notes on what I wanted to talk about, thinking that I would just kind of keep it casual and wing it, but then I just ended up writing something. So I think I feel more comfortable if I just read it to the group. And then we can open it up for discussion or whatnot. So the Aptos History Museum officially opened on May 24th, 2006. But it started back in 1985 when Carolyn Swift, who was a former commissioner on this board, she donated a historic photograph of the Aptos train station to the Aptos Chamber of Commerce. And that was the first piece of our collection. The public would stop in and they would comment on how wonderful the photo was and where can I see more. People started bringing photos to the Chamber of Commerce and their collection kind of started just building on the wall. It grew to a size where they needed a separate space for it, hence the need of a separate museum for Aptos history. Since Aptos is located in an unincorporated part of the county, the museum does not receive any funding from the county. They rely solely on membership fees, donations, and fundraising events. And the museum has always kept its doors open to the public with no fee for admission. They've been an important resource to the community, and they welcome several third grade classes every year for their history field trips. The building that houses the museum, if anyone has ever been to the Aptos History Museum, you know that the building is split into two different sides, where one side of the building is for the Aptos Chamber of Commerce, and one side is, the other side is for the museum. Now, John and Karen Hibble, who run the Aptos Chamber of Commerce, are also the curators of the Aptos History Museum, and they've always been able to keep an eye on the History Museum while operating the chamber. They would see if somebody walks into the museum, someone can easily just stand up, walk over, welcome them to the museum, and answer any questions they may have. So it worked out very, very easy to have those two organizations in one building. However, earlier this year, the building was sold, and we have been scrambling to find a new location, but have been unsuccessful. We were recently just preparing to box up the entire museum and put everything in storage until we find a new place. That plan has been put on hold for now. The new owners of the building took over the Aptos Chamber side and graciously have allowed the museum to stay where it is now, which may sound like a good thing, but they did raise the rent on us. And since the chamber had to relocate to a different part of Aptos, they can no longer keep an eye on the museum, meaning the museum is no longer open to the public. So we didn't have to box anything up, but we are essentially now just overpaying for a storage space. We will open up if we are contacted and said, hey, we want to come and take a look at the museum. We're meeting people there on reservation only, but that's just not a good
Open by appointment.
Open by appointment. So the museum, we are currently going through the process of becoming an official 501c3. And we will be working with the Community Foundation to help secure some potential grants that are designated for preserving local history. And we're also talking about holding a one-time campaign to help raise funds to allow us to purchase our own building. One of the buildings that we have in mind is the historic Rice House, which was recently purchased by the RTC in order to gain access for their planned rail trail. And we think that this is an excellent location for the History Museum. First of all, the Rice House is currently designated as a historic resource. It's a historic building. It's one of the oldest buildings in Aptos. It was what we believe is the first hotel in Aptos. And it's also located in the original Aptos Village. Aptos Village today is a little bit further up the road, but the location of where it is right next to the Arano House, which is the oldest house, the oldest building in Aptos, I should say, and the original downtown Aptos Village. So it would be a wonderful opportunity for a historic museum to house that building. Secondly, the RTC, the only reason they purchased it was to gain access to the land for the rail trail. They are not planning on using the Rice House for anything. They do not need access to it. They need to maintain it. And they are not in the business of real estate or maintaining historic properties. And so we feel like we can bring that service to them, we think that would be really beneficial to us, really beneficial to them, if we can be in that building. We're currently in negotiations with them to try to find either a long-term rental agreement, rent to own, or a one-time purchase. We've been going back and forth. They've gone through some personnel changes, and so we're still kind of in process of all of that. But regardless of whether or not we can come up with an agreement with the RTC, I think it would be beneficial for the Aptos History Museum and for the entire county's effort to preserve and educate about local history if we, the Historic Resource Commission, could offer a vote of confidence to support the housing of the Aptos History Museum. And it's my understanding that a vote of confidence is nothing more than a show of support. It won't guarantee anything. It doesn't enforce any rules or regulations. This is something that the museum can use to support the fact that it is an important part of the county and it deserves to have a location to serve the public. And given the fact that we're negotiating with the RTC to be housed in a historic building, I think the support of the Historic Resources Commission would be quite meaningful. And this is something that Barry and I had discussed briefly, and I'm wondering if that is something that you would want to add with regards to a vote of confidence and what that means in this situation.
It's, I'll accept any support and guidance that I can get from staff as I speak here. Just feel free to jump in. I think that it can be a very positive gesture, and I think that in our efforts to network and increased impact of historic influence and designation in our community, that it would be a very good idea. Have you developed a verbiage that you would like to suggest for this?
I have not. No, I wanted to bring this up just as an initial conversation topic and see where it would go before putting in any more work there.
Well, let's open this subject up for a brief discussion. Let's try to give it 5 minutes. Any other commissioners have any questions of Kevin or any thoughts that come to mind from this?
Yes. Well, I've been to the museum and I've known John for quite some time due to my relationship with the San Lorenzo Valley Museum. And in fact, I'm sure you're aware of the museum partnership brochure.
Yeah.
And we used to meet at the Aptos Museum for our meetings on that. And I always felt it needed much more room. You've got so much history there.
Yeah.
And, to have more room to display it and tell the story of Aptos is very important. So I, for one, support their efforts in finding the proper location so that the Aptos Museum can shine and be available and tell its story to the public.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioners wish to add any comment? I will. I think it's a great match to use the Rice House. This commission watched the Rice House be acquired. You were the watchdogs that made sure that the RTC was going to honor the designation and not go in and either tear down part of the house or modify. We approved the tearing down of the adjacent garages because those garages were not historic. They were built in the 50s. But this has been a keen project and it's a very important pivot. So I think that I also want to recognize the multiple factors. Kevin follows Carolyn Swift, who was in fact the director of the Capitola Museum and the founder, so to speak, of the Aptos Museum. And so the RTC has a long history of interfacing with the Aptos Museum. And so I would definitely support a vote of confidence for this project and an encouragement for them to pursue. We can't make any requirements, but I think that what we can do is encourage them to pursue the acquisition of the Rice House for the home of the Aptos Museum. And I think we can make a very simple statement. We support that position. So if we can come up with the verbiage, we may be able to do that at this moment because it is an item on the agenda. So it's within our range that we can take an action on it.
Yeah, go on, I can just suggest you could, write a letter from the Historic Resource Commission directed to the RTC that, you would.
I think that's
Their
right.
way to make it feasible,
That we
given the
discussed
cost constraints and.
And we're in support of.
Yeah, I do know, I talked to them earlier and they were, I saw that we got further negotiations, I talked to, Sarah Christensen, and she said there's concerns with the beginning, get the public funds, that there was, kind of some lowball rents and that sort of thing, so I'm sure they have issues they need to work out on their side, but but I still, see the commission's point that if there's a way to make it
And I think,
feasible and, consistent with their, their requirements and, laws and everything.
so what we need is a proposal that I write a letter. I'm willing to write it as chair, that I can write the letter. I don't think we need to approve the verbiage of the letter. If we approve the spirit of the letter, we can just send it out and I'll bring it back to enter a copy of it into our records at the next meeting. So let's try to get past the mini protocols and move forward, and do something meaningful. So can we float a motion that the chair writes a letter to the RTC for the purpose of supporting the intentions of moving the Aptos Museum to the Rice House? One more thing I'm gonna say. Guys, it's going to happen. Bear with me. Kristen Brown is the incoming chairman of the RTC, and she's running for the supervisor seat in that district. I can assure you they're gonna get the Rice House. If it's available, they're gonna get it. Okay, it's a matter of bottom line, whether it's gonna be an available property that they can sell. But the spirit of it, I think, is very correct and very, very much the direction of preserving history. So we need to float that motion so that we can put it as an action. Do I have anybody willing to?
I motion that the chair write a letter in support of the, I don't want to summarize everything you said, but that you write a letter in support of, using the Rice House for the Aptos History Museum. And
Great. Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Does anyone feel this needs further discussion?
I just have one point of clarification. Did I hear that it's already in conversation with RTC that negotiations are underway?
Yeah, we've been discussing, over the past several months and yeah, they've gone through some different leadership changes and continue to do so. And one week, someone will tell us no way in hell, the next week, someone will be like, yeah, we're willing to open up for conversations. And so it's just been a lot of back and forth and terms have not been agreed upon. Obviously, we're not looking for a handout. We would be absolutely gracious if they were looking for some goodwill in the community and said, yes, we will give you something that's reasonable. But yeah, the Aptos History Museum is more than willing to pay what is fair for us to be there as well. So we're not looking for a handout, but we would accept one.
He always needs a helping hand, right?
Exactly.
May I also add that I believe that what we want to do is direct our letter to the board of directors or trustees of the RTC, not to administration.
Correct.
Okay, that organization operates with two branches. The administration, who are salaried and paid to conduct the affairs of the RTC, and the board that oversees the management and sets the direction of those affairs for the administration. So I think we're talking about the board.
Yeah.
And we'll also copy the Aptos Museum on the letter, showing them our support.
Right.
And please feel free to bring this message back to John and Karen.
Okay. Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow, actually. So.
Great. That's just great.
And you don't need to change the motion to reflect this letter going to the board.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's a point of clarification. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay, everybody good with that? Are we solid?
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Appreciate everybody's cooperation. And Kevin, this is a great example of a new commissioner being effective. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for allowing me to bring this to the group.
Well,
Appreciate it.
look what happened from when we first had the phone chat about it for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
It turned into something solid. So that's just great. Okay, I believe we have completed new business. We're doing smashingly well today, friends.
Do we need to vote on that?
I'm sorry.
Is there a vote?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for,
There was a motion.
there was a motion and
Second.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Who seconded it? Linda? Good motion, though.
We can see we have new chairman material and Emily for the future. Thank you very much. Revealing your skills. Okay, the motion has been thoroughly discussed. Let's call for a vote regarding the motion on supporting this gesture for the Aptos History Museum to move to the Rice House. Commissioner Phillips, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Newhouse,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Burton.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pearlman, yes, also. So we unanimously support this. And hooray. Thank you. Now we can move back to old business. Okay? Our goal tracking. For those of you who are newer, this is a terrific thing. Linda has taken this on over the long term. For those of you that don't know it, Linda was the chairman of this commission for more than 10 years before I took over, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so she has a particular focus over the long term. This goals document gets updated quarterly, and it's the meat and potatoes of what we do. By itself, it's a passive document, it's nothing, but it's the guideline that keeps us tracking and moving forward. So I want to make a particular statement of appreciation to Linda for her ongoing maintenance of the goals. And I also want to ask the other commissioners to become as familiar as they can with this element, because we don't want Linda to have to do this forever. So we're going to transition this at some point from it. And let's also recognize the delicacy of our appointments. Okay, I appreciate every member of this commission. I also appreciated prior members. And Susie Merriam was a huge contributor. And when Manu got elected, he removed all 41 commissioners to replace them with his own choice. That is indeed his perspective, but it wasn't because of performance sake. So as new good commissioners come on, they're likely replacing other commissioners who succeeded at their work. So Linda's supervisor is going to change, and the delicacy of her position is completely unknown to us. We must be prepared to transition this goals sheet because of that possibility. So I'm naming it long in advance, just as one of the trickier parts of operating a commission. Okay, so with that preface, I hope I didn't overtalk it. I'd like to turn it over to Linda to give us our goals review.
Thank you. And just a couple more comments, going off of what Barry said. This is for us. So if anyone has any suggestions to make it more usable, more informative, easier to maneuver through, this is our living document for us. So no motions, no formal, we just talk about it and decide how we would like it. So we have, the very first page, this is for us to be tracking goals, is to give us a sense of accomplishment, knowing we're moving forward, is to make sure things that were maybe a goal mentioned 2 meetings ago don't fall through the cracks and then wonder what happened. things don't keep getting repeated over and over again with seemingly no progress. That's what this is for. And then when we do it, we complete something, it gets archived. And, Annie has been, and it will go to Matthew, that they have the archive file. And the idea was that then every January, we would go through all of the open goals, because some of them are more long-term, but just to kind of check in on everything that's open. And again, get a fresh look at it. Is it still long-term? Mills Act. But, others, what do we need to do to get this done, completed? And archived.
And I'd like to add to that, as required by the county, I think it's in our code, the boards and commissions have to report to the board of supervisors every other year on January 31st, which is going to come up this January 31st, 2024, to explain what you have done the previous 2 years, 2022 and 2023.
Is this a new item?
No, these are part, I submit that combined with the CLG report, because it's a certified local government, we also have to do an annual report. But yes, as part of that, we do include a section on the goals of the commission.
Is that a staff responsibility or a commission responsibility?
Yeah, the staff prepares it and then provides it to the commission to review as well. Yeah.
Have we reviewed such in the past? I don't
Yes.
recall.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've reviewed it at the January meeting before it's submitted?
No, I mean, Annie includes it in the packet. But I think most of the time it's included training we've done, and I don't think it's been listed any specific goals we've accomplished.
It does have a section for goals in there as part of that. I don't go through these whole packet.
What have we accomplished in the previous 2 years?
Okay.
And January 22nd is your next meeting. The board supervisors are on January 31st. The staff report that has to be submitted to the board will be to the board well before your meeting. So you're not gonna have an opportunity to review it. It's just gonna be a staff report, right, Andy? It's gonna be
Right.
maybe one-on-one to review or one-on-one to.
That's what I was just thinking, just to kind of go through.
What we typically do is, if you do one-on-one, that actually might be a Brown Act violation in terms of a serial meeting where you meet each person, but we typically do is send out, and I think you remember that, asking for commissioners, because part of that is what individual commissioners have accomplished for the CLG report. So we'll send out what if you, let me know what you accomplished our related historic preservation over the past year. So that goes in there as well as.
Well, what I was thinking was more, what doesn't get in there is that a new ordinance has been updated and approved dealing with this.
Right.
And we've put in some new wording to better watch over historic properties. Those kinds of things that we have as goals, but don't get into, and I don't know where the line is on what is noteworthy enough and what is for us to keep us moving along.
So I think it'd be appropriate for Linda and I to go
Yeah.
over all this stuff for that report that goes to the board.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Brown Act is not an issue as long as it doesn't go past 2 people.
Right.
Right.
So theoretically, Linda and I and yourself.
Sure. And we could do it in a 3-way phone call, we could do it
That's
meeting in
right.
person, whatever works.
And by the
What is
way-
the date that you are due to submit?
About 10 minutes ago. That's what I found out.
January
So-
31st.
So perhaps we should include an item in our October meeting agenda however, it won't be this October because it'll be 2 years. So next October we pass.
2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I guess at this point, can you
Yeah.
make a mental note and we'll try to stick it on the future agenda down the road?
Mental posted.
Well,
The adhesive on that stuff.
That's question.
we do, every year we are required to submit
a similar report to the state as a certified local government. So it could be a standing October.
Well, yeah, let's make it a standing October item that we review our annual accomplishments and name them in October. And then they've got it for whatever is needed for it. And thank you. And also, what I've learned over my time as a commissioner, for those of you who are new, what I've learned is, that staff needs to have the freedom to move forward and do things that are relevant to the commission in representing information about us to other parts of government, okay? And that's just something that you learn is an essential thing, and then we get updated. Sometimes we have to get updated after it's happened, because it's needed in the now, no time to have a meeting or contact us. So, you go with the flow. County government is a well-managed business. I believe it's a well-managed business. I have a deep investment with a spouse with 26 years and 5 years of annuitant work. Let's have some trust. Okay, I've learned that that's the best route to go. Linda, please continue.
Okay, so our second slide is, and this is presented every time, just let you know which action items were identified from the previous meeting to be reviewed, which ones are more long-term meetings, long-term goals. So at some future meeting, when there's new information or activity, they'll be then brought up to be talked about. What goals are closed, and I'm going to add in there and archived with the meeting date, and then goals not requiring any activity at this time.
Next page.
Okay.
That's the master list of goals.
I should have unstapled. So, and then Matthew included this one to give you more of a overview of what our goals have been. And then the ones in bold are the ones we're talking about for this meeting.
And what about number 13? Do you recall? where that-
I didn't get a chance to look that one up.
Okay.
You don't remember?
I don't, although I think we do have all the spreadsheet. Oh, I didn't. We didn't print those out. I think I did include them in here. Didn't I include the spreadsheet of all the goals?
Yeah, there's a spreadsheet. Well, that's goal tracking. And
Okay, I consider that afterwards. I meant to include the spreadsheet of all the.
So
Oh, it is there. Okay.
13 is a review of the DPR form.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
That could probably be actually combined. Well, we can talk when we get to it.
yeah, I think
Combine
that,
with the inventory update.
I think that's what happened. You were to provide a blank and completed, and you did that.
Yeah,
We have those. So, I have that, in fact, I have this that it was, I've got archived October last year.
okay.
So,
not goal number 13.
yeah,
You archived it when?
10/3/22.
Got it.
Yeah, we do have the list of archive goals in the packet, so, yeah.
All right, so our first goal, and usually this would definitely be a January one, is to look at training opportunities for us. And Annie checks the various organizations that provide training. And you did send out something, I did see.
Yeah, so I don't believe that the commission has done a training for this year, correct? And as a certified local government, we are required to do an annual training. So the California Preservation Foundation, and they're an organization that works to preserve history in California, and they have a lot of strong educational components to that, and they put together some great webinars. I sent out I sent the same document out, but I included the link. They have a YouTube channel where
They have 3 webinars that they've done, so, my suggestion would be for, I have 3 here, we can talk through them, but for the commissioner to choose one and then let Matthew know when he completed it, because as part of our CLG report, we also have to list trainings that the commission has completed and when they were done. So, so the first one is, called Deep Listening, How We Prioritize Diverse Voices in Historic Preservation. And I thought this sounded really good because even Lynn had brought that
Yeah.
up regarding, how do we sort of acknowledge, contributions to history from different ethnic groups and, different communities. So I thought this might be right up, the commission's alley in terms of, thinking about how to integrate that. So that's one option. And then the second one is about architectural styles. And I believe I sent this link out maybe a couple of years ago. There's new commissioners, and this one is just nice for understanding sort of what features of different architectural styles make them significant. And this is helpful when we do get a project to review, understanding like, oh, this is mission style. So what's significant to this architecture that we should be careful about preserving, when we get a project in. So that's also enjoyable to go through that. And then the third one, is, sort of a review of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Preservation. And most of you know, these standards are what our own, regulations in our county code are based on in terms of, how you make sure you preserve the historic integrity and the significant features of property. So this kind of goes through the standards, and this is, especially if anyone hasn't gone through this training before, it's really, a good way to.
Is this one of our county buildings or is this just generic?
No, this is, I don't know where this is, but this is, not local to the county, but statewide, so I'm assuming somewhere in California.
Somewhere in California.
Yeah. Yeah, so any of these would be great, to do, so, that would be my suggestion is.
And it looks like it's just a simple going into YouTube, clicking on.
Right, yes, most of
That's
them
grand.
are
That's
like,
a big improvement.
yeah, I think they're mostly like an hour to an hour and a half in length, so,
YouTube U, YouTube University. It's amazing.
Yeah. They're very well done. I did the third one.
oh, we've already done it, okay, yeah, so they, so you can just send us the date then, but.
That's just great.
Oh, we'll rush it.
It's all done.
Need we take any tangible action on this? Raising that question to our group.
In what way?
Do we need to, approve or accept these training opportunities or?
I don't think so,
I don't think
because
so.
it's all on us.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, so, Andy, thank you very much for this. It's handed right to us.
I would like to, on the third bullet there is, the, CPF conference that's held annually. It shifts from Northern California to Southern California. And we do not have enough budget to cover us going and paying registration, lodging and so on. So we typically look at when it's held in Northern California. And in the past, we've been able to go for one day. So we carpool to where the conference is, if it's close enough. And then we pick out what workshops we want to go to. So we kind of get as much training as possible. And it's been very, very good, very enjoyable, very informative. So, but for this next year, Matthew will be seeing if there's some online webinars that will be available to us so we can get some training available. And so, possibly report back at the January meeting. So we can look at trying to get a kind of a training schedule for throughout the year.
Yeah, I won't be at the January meeting, but I just wanted to mention. I just wanted to mention that I think, Linda, you'd also mentioned that,
Jennifer, is that her name, with the city of Santa Cruz? She
Yes.
was interested in, doing some sort of activity with HRC, so, one option could be to think about bringing someone in to do a training.
Right.
Doing that with them, so anyway, that's another idea, so I know in-person training are always.
Right, at the history fair that I manned the HRC booth at, next to my table was, it was friends of Castro Adobe, I think. But the woman I talked to is on the Santa Cruz City Preservation Council. And we got talking about, we have some of the same constraints in that of no budget, Brown Act, and so on. But that we have an awful lot in common with what we want to do and recognizing the historic resources both under the city and the county. And it would be great if we could somehow find some activities, some efforts that we could work together on. And Annie suggested that maybe having someone come in that we could have both both preservation organizations attend the training together.
The other organization being the Castro Adobe.
No, the Preservation Council. The
Preservation
city.
Council. Yes, great.
So, so that was there. And then in number 2, along with the very first webinar there that they offered, I had brought up after hearing one of the historical speakers at the history forum that we tend to be looking at a lot of the owners of it seems to me, of our historic resources tend to be more the wealthy white movers and shakers that came to settle in the county. And we have a lot of various ethnic groups that tend to, and I'm thinking Chinese, Filipino, Croatians, that tend to develop their own little communities. And did leave a mark and did leave an influence on how Santa Cruz grew. And I was wondering, is there any of their buildings left around that we don't know about? We haven't had our inventory updated since 94. And that, I don't know, was the entire inventory that was reviewed or not. Or their cultures, or their, way of life, and maybe having some speakers come and talk about that to try and help us more kind of diversify and grow our inventory with other types of resources representing other groups. So that's what number 2 is, and that's just out there for discussion going forward, if that's something we want to try and pursue or not. And I was thinking of the woman who spoke for History Day and talked about, she was a resident at Maw, and she's the one who got the change in the Loudon to London Nelson Civic Center.
Are you talking about Luna?
Yes. And someone like that to come and talk and to kind of educate, inform us of these other people, other ethnic groups in our county, and what they did, and where they were, where did they reside, what were they in our county to make it bring out their history too. So that's what that number 2 is.
It seems to link really well with the first training that Annie had shared with us. Might be good to go through that and then have a good sense of, how to get that done. And how to do that.
If we partner with the city, we increase our power base to attract the important speakers.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, okay, I have taken Luna's training on Black history in Santa Cruz County, and it's pretty thin. But I'm talking about real historians like Sandy Leiden and Frank Perry, who we're talking about nationally recognized guys who live here in our community. And if we network with the city's historic preservation, then it might be big enough to get somebody like Frank or Sandy to give us a morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe we take them out to lunch or something like that as the cap for it. But I'm really liking this because our 5-person commission just isn't a significant enough number of people to ask some of these pretty elevated individuals. But the idea of putting together a larger group, Linda, is a breakthrough. Coincidentally, we've not talked about this exact thing before.
Right.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's the way to get it.
I was thinking the same thing as Linda was presenting the diversity approach to the history of our area. Your first name that came to mind was Sandy, because he's got a monstrous footprint through the Chinese gold and
Right.
right, pulled together. And I think, just throwing it out there, I think he might be a perfect source of information. What about the Filipino community? Do you have any connections to the Filipino community or to the Croatian community as a result of your work on the Chinese gold book?
Exactly.
The Croatian community is largely housed in South County.
Yeah.
And is very strongly linked to the Pajaro Valley Historic Association. They've got the records of every family. It's shocking.
Yeah.
So that would be where we would go for
And I
that.
don't know Sandy. I've never met him. I have his book on my shelf for the last 25 years and I have yet to read it. Shame on me.
No, I think several of us do. I know Sandy and I know Frank quite well.
40 years ago, Sandy gave me my affirmative action training.
So, but I realize for us, we're looking at resources, you know, it's the inventory is for us. But to, I think, find where that is, we need to, you know, learn what are the different groups. I'm sure there's some that I didn't know they were here, you know, kind of thing. And, you know, and yes, learn about who knows their history and, and where did they live and are there any buildings left so that we've got both sides. We've got the physicalness of where they settled, what they were doing, what their occupations, because they would tend to go into, you know, 1 or 2 occupations that they either brought with us or ended up going into once they got here.
Right.
And going and learning more about it.
I mean, I might also suggest that you all, it's online, you all read the context statement, because that's sort of where the county addresses kind of broad themes of development, historic development, and I don't remember the details, but I know there's some information in there about contributions from ethnic groups and things, and then, and then the DPRs, you know, as part of the history, like we do have buildings that were, you know, owned by, you know, and so that should be acknowledged part of that, but I don't think it's worth the conversation. How do you address this in a broader way and integrate that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think right now it's more important. I mean, I should say it's important to do it as quickly as possible because a lot of the history and a lot of the stories and a lot of the knowledge are dying every single day.
Absolutely.
For example, the Hirahara family in Watsonville from the Hirahara house, the kids who grew up in that house are aging out and passing away, and we're losing treasures with them. And so getting out there, talking to the community, and there's a Filipino community hall off of Freedom Boulevard in Watsonville.
For sure.
That we can just, and that's what Sandy does. Sandy goes to the communities and says, hey, I'm Sandy Leiden, I'm a historian, tell me about your history. And that's what he learns. There's no magic to it. He just goes out there and he talks to people, and that's what we need to do. And they want to tell their stories. They want to be seen and recognized.
Right.
They don't know where to turn a lot of the time. And so us reaching out to them, I think would be a tremendous resource.
Well, what we see in South County is that there's referring to this lovely organization, the Pajaro Valley Historic Preservation Association. Excuse me, but there isn't a board member under 75 years old. They asked me to join. I was the youngest. Okay, and I decided not to join because I'm already spending too much time with old white people. So, my concern, as is yours, is that that group is aging out and they're not pulling up young members to become involved, okay? So as we're seeing in our culture, this issue of ageism and handing over the mantle to younger generations, something that we have to consciously pay attention to, because there isn't the momentum in the culture for the young people to grab it. Okay, so we have to do some recruiting. And that's kind of what's going on in culture right now. We're recruiting people to get into the activities that are being otherwise disappearing on us. So regarding this specifically, do we have any action items to come out of a goal one? Do we want to generate a conversation about a seminar for 2024 that would be a shared seminar with?
Well, I have that Matthew, that staff will present our training opportunities at the January meeting.
Yeah, we have to figure out, so just thinking, we're talking about how to figure out like Brown Act stuff, if we're combining the commissions, or it could be, I mean, there is an exception to the Brown Act where you're just going to a training and you don't talk about.
Exactly right.
Business,
None of our business.
But it doesn't have to be a
None of our
Brown Act
operational,
meeting,
that's right.
So it probably could go under that where it's just,
That's
that's hot.
Right. Yeah, no, you're not talking.
call it a training seminar, not a meeting.
Yeah,
It's not a meeting.
yeah.
So Matthew, so you would contact the, so we first want to find out if the City Preservation Council would be open to a shared training session.
And that's what it's called, the City Preservation Council?
Santa Cruz City Preservation Council?
Do you know who the contact is?
No, I don't.
I think it's, yeah, I can get that for you too, but I think it's the Historic Preservation Commission. I think they're talking
Is that what it is?
so.
Okay, I'll pull it together one way or the other.
And we probably should just confirm with county council too, that this won't be a Brown Act concern if we do this.
What would it be?
Having the training and.
No.
Well, anyway, I think we should confirm with them.
No, yeah.
It's not.
Okay, before we leave goal one, I've been hearing something through our dialogue. It's not been isolated in its naming, but I believe that our commission has not accomplished our trainings in 2023. And we're hearing that Matthew will be bringing us trainings, some suggestions for trainings in January of 2024, for 2024. Could I ask, while we're still on goal one, would commissioners be able to view one of these three in the next few weeks in December?
That was my intention, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, explicit.
Yeah, I mean, then we've hit our goal.
Right, that is my.
Then we can
intention.
report in January. We will report in January that we accomplished our 2023 training.
Right, yeah, any one of those.
Any one of them.
And then just let Matthew know which one you want.
But what Linda and I were discussing still stands, I think, because what we
Yeah.
want to do is go out and try and connect to Croatians or Filipinos or whoever else might.
Right,
That
and-
has a footprint here in the county for many, many decades.
And I think in, bringing Sandy and Frank into the discussion and as,
Either one.
I know Frank the best, but I've met Sandy on various So I think it would be asked, letting them know what we want to do and saying, what are your suggestions? Or one, would you come and speak about, and I guess we would ask them an ethnic group.
Mhm.
And their history and where they lived, and are there any, physical buildings that we need to get on our radar?
That's the whole point of this, is trying to figure out what physical features are on. the
Right.
land. So-
And then hopefully maybe we would apply for funding so we could update contact statements. Cause that hasn't been done in.
Context,
Context,
context statements, right?
cause that hasn't been done for many, many years.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, adding property to inventory, then you went into the whole cost to prepare the DPR forms and everything, but that's another topic.
Well, again, maybe we can get some grants
Or we
to
can
do
get
that.
grants, or we get friendly Obispo archaeology students or San Jose State.
But we're ahead by naming that if we believe it qualifies, we're staying on top of our game. And if we can't afford the funding for it, that's the consequence, but that doesn't keep us from identifying all possible properties.
That's right.
Still add them to the watch list.
Okay, so, you know, it doesn't
The
have to
watch
be,
list and.
doesn't have to be new to the arts, but just, right, the contact statement or some way to acknowledge that as sort of the beginning place too.
So Linda, I'm gonna put down that you and Kevin reach out to Frank and Sandy about reaching out to these communities,
That's great.
or at least find people's names.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
can take it from there,
And then maybe you and I can connect, before reaching out to them, and we can kind of narrow down what specifically we're looking for, so we can not just have such a general ask, like, hey, tell us about the Filipinos.
Well, that's it, get focused, because if
Yeah.
we seem too scattered and too broad, they're gonna say,
No.
that's more than I wanna take on,
Exactly.
that sounds like a huge.
right? You're looking for structures
Yes.
that we can identify on our list of, what is it, 6A, 6B, 6, whatever it is, the tiers that we have.
I mean, the National Register ratings.
Is that what it is, 1 through 6?
Yeah, right, 6 is not significant.
Yes, 1 through 5,
One
yeah.
through five,
yeah.
And I wouldn't hold my breath about getting Sandy out here. He's getting harder and harder to try and do things. However, he would be a tremendous resource to point us in the right direction and maybe say like, I don't want to do it, but talk to the Mika's sisters about the Croatians.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the more different speakers we have, again, we're getting publicity to us, what we do, and start getting more visible.
Right, and the point is not to have Sandy do any work and not to have Frank do any work. The
Mhm.
point is, that I'm trying to convey is that they help us reach somebody.
Yeah, yeah,
And then we can go from there.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a good, also reading the context statement to see what information we do have now too, as a starting place too, would be good.
Can you clarify what the context statement is?
Yes, so the context statement, like each community should have a context statement that looks at the important themes that led to the physical development of the community. So it looks at different periods in time and what kind of the themes were, and then identifies the buildings and properties within those different themes that are historically significant. So we do have, the context statement for Santa Cruz County is old, I think it was in the 80s or early 90s, I think it was.
Is it a single vision sort of a context statement, or do they bifurcate based on west side, east side, central, south side, north side? Because towns grow up in strange ways. You know, there's the chicken ranch.
Oh, that sure happened.
Right, well, it does have themes like that, like
Yeah,
I think chicken farming is probably a theme in there,
Right.
but, yeah, it's county, like unincorporated county essentially.
Where's the stuff?
It is available, online under the historic resources tab, I can send you all a link or.
Yeah, because it was really hard to find.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the goals.
And that context statement, should not be static. It shouldn't just sit there for 30 years or 40 years. Ideally, it would be updated as the community evolves, maybe ideally every 10 years to 15 years.
Right.
Because new information comes along as we go, and let it go its way. But how do you fund that context?
Right, that's what we talked about in the past, yeah.
That's where the Office of Historic Preservation comes in theoretically with grant funds
Right,
or CDBG funds, perhaps, I can't.
Yeah, they do have the CLG, as a certified local government, there are funds, although the grants are typically pretty small, but there is some funding, and that would be something that is part of what they consider funding for, would be updating the content statement.
If you're talking about doing it every 10 years, what comes to mind is to do it concurrent or in response following the census and the redistricting exercise. Because the county does a redistricting exercise every 10 years from the results of the census and adjust the territorial lines of each supervisor district. So maybe in that same sort of role would be a good time to revisit the context statement.
And the information from census was 2020 with a lot of late returns to the US Census 2021, which means they're just getting their information together in 2023. So we're not behind the curve on this.
We had, in terms of our local stuff, we did our redistricting 6 months following the census.
So,
But that's because that was very tangible. It was just about the shift of the population within the districts. And of course, the political goals of supervisors and future candidates.
So Commission 2, getting back to you and I as a subcommittee, with you contacting Sandy Lyden and myself contacting Frank Perry, when do we want to do a report date? We want to do it at the January or the April meeting? And I'm thinking January might be too soon.
Can't get it done.
Can't do it.
So should we April? Okay. And then on, bullet 3, I have down here about the 3 webinars on YouTube and, just that every commissioner will view one of the,
It's the
webinars.
intention of every commissioner to review one before the end of the
Well, I
year.
was gonna say will attempt, but
Well, I mean, technically, we should do it because the CLG does require.
Correct,
it to
then
be
we,
released,
that
so-
will conform.
but I'm actually, yeah, I was thinking about that. Did we do one earlier in the year?
Well, we were given them, but we didn't do them. I perceive, I have to speak for people that are here and no longer commissioners. But I perceive that we didn't get around to actually doing it.
I mean, if a commissioner did watch it and they recall a date, they can send that in, but I know we had like the boot camp, and I think I sent it out several times, but I don't know that anyone actually
Yeah.
did it, so.
Oh, I did the boot camp.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
You're making us look.
So, but I have no recollection of the date.
That's
And I
okay.
liked that third video, those images looked familiar, so.
Yeah, so it could have been part of what they put into the boot camp training, yeah, so yeah, it sounds like you're covered.
Okay, moving on to goal number 2, cleanup of our historic resources inventory. So what that is previously we received blank TBR forms, and we were to try and get by resources in our area and see if there's anything that had changed. Also take some new pictures, and then get them to Annie. But you and I, when we talked about this, we were talking about not really worrying about filling out new DPR forms.
Yeah, so we actually have a team in place finally, which is wonderful to help. Fernanda's gonna be a big part of that too, helping to clean up the inventory. So I sent this out, I think, last night, but we have sort of a plan in place. First, it would be, right now, we don't have the inventory on when we have the list of properties, but the first step would be getting sort of the inventory online as it is, based on scanning the resources that we
I'm
have.
gonna take this opportunity to use the restroom.
Oh.
Continue. We, you know, we could, why don't we call a
Yeah,
5-minute break?
yeah, why don't we just do that?
Perfect, Matthew. Yeah, excuse me, let's, take a 5-minute break right now. We often do at 11 o'clock, and I let the clock go 2 minutes. So, we'll take about a 5-minute break and resume on goal number 2, when we return. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're meeting back to order at 11:10, and we're on, old business goals, and we're in the midst of item number 2.
So Annie, what I'd like to do, because we do have some new, commissioners, can we go through, I guess, an order of how how we're looking at goal number 2 and completing it? You said we now have staff available and their primary task at this time is to scan in all of the current DPRs.
Well, so, yeah, we've kind of, so the sort of overall task is to clean up the historic resources inventory and make it available online. We've kind of divided that into 3 tasks. And the first task would be scanning our current DPR forms and then making them available online. But our inventory is organized by planning areas, so they'd be organized in the same way by planning area. And the goal would be to have that completed by January, like end of January.
End of January.
Yeah.
January 24th.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Do you personally, you guys think that's realistic?
I think so, yeah, I mean, we do have, Fernanda will be doing a lot of that work, and I'm gonna coordinate with her for, before I go as well, so hopefully, that's the goal, I'll say that's the goal. And then, the next step would be, uploading the information to the county's GIS system, so they'll be easy to access when you look up a parcel, you know, there'll be a link to the DPR form, and so to make it sort of even more easy to use.
What that means, the GIS platform is the one that's particularly interesting to me and probably to all of you. We get to the GIS platform, I guess it's staff that you guys wouldn't have access to.
No, the public has access to
Oh,
the
okay.
GIS system too, definitely.
So you can call up, historic buildings, push the button, and you'll see little dots all over the maps indicating where all these buildings are. Or you could narrowly focus down to a certain geographic area and see what's there. What else would you get out of the GIS?
Right, yeah, that's a good point, you can sort of look at it in different ways, you know, you can bring up, it would do a parcel, it would bring up the DPR.
Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, so you look at nothing but the tier 1s and nothing but the tier 2s and nothing but the tier 3 classifications, or all of them combined. Maybe also by address. You need to go by address. Yes, of course, you would be able to do that by address and by APN, Census
I
Department.
would imagine that once it's sorted, if they get uniform information in for every property, then you can sort it any which way you want to. You might be able to sort it by age,
Right.
which could have some interesting.
Potentially, yeah, I mean, I think I don't know for sure all the ways to go sort it, because there are some limits on like what the public has access to, but certainly I think the way that Matthew described it, where you can, you know, click on the historic parcel link that shows you where they are in the county and being able to pull the DPR forms definitely.
So that's the county will be doing that. There's
Yes.
Right,
planning staff,
Yes.
and that right now we're looking at being done by our April meeting.
right.
And again, that's the target
Right,
date.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
That would be dependent entirely on task 1.
And working with our GIS team in the county to, yeah, so,
okay, so those 2 tasks will end up with a staff update then at our January and then our April meeting.
April 8th, yeah, January 22 potentially for task 1, and then April 8 for task 2 and 3.
Well, I think task 3, I don't know how that got an April date, I think that one is one, but I think, I think what I put up on it was like fall.
That's, I think so,
Well,
absolutely.
not task 2, I think April, but task 3 is more
Right.
like fall, because task 3 is where they're, you know, they're, it would be great to have committees involved.
Amanda's typing. Did you notice?
Oh, right, yes, thank you, Fernanda. Task 3 is where the commission can be really helpful, because that one is where we're now going in and trying to update the information in the DPR forms.
Right, so that, the number 3 pertains to us.
Yeah, and so, you know, the county, now that we have a team together, that I think the main, so the county, we have access to ownership records and making sure the APMs and addresses are correct. There've been like, you know, subdivisions and things. So the county staff can update ownership information, addresses, that sort of thing. But where the commission could be helpful is looking at properties in their districts, planning areas, and seeing if they, you know, the condition has changed, and sort of letting staff know so we can look into it. And then and the other part of this will also be, the county staff also has access to permit history. So if there's, you know, if there are changes to the structures, then that should be reflected in the permit history that was an approved permit, hopefully. You know, so that people do work that permit, but,
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that when we look at a DPR and we're looking at updating it, the commissioners, do not need to care about ownership name, do not need to care about addresses, do not need to care about when the house was built. So how often are these records updated? I mean, are they going up and being updated 5 times a year? 3 times a year?
I mean, the information in the county system in terms of like assessor's records, like they should be updating that when ownership changes, but we haven't been updating that in the inventory, so that needs to be done.
That's my concern, is how often is the inventory though being updated?
It's not, basically.
So, but you're telling us not to give you that information.
Well, no,
So,
I think what I'm saying is that we do have access to it, but we haven't transferred that information to the inventory. So we can go to the county records and look at permit history, but I'm just saying that the commission doesn't need to do that because we do have access to this information. It's a matter of getting it into the inventory.
and that's where I'd like a little assurance that final step will be done, not that due to lack of staff, lack of time, lack of budget, it ends up just kind of sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And it doesn't get updated on a regular basis, so it is current for when somebody goes in to look at it, look at the GIS and look at the records.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm trying to, you know, firm up things. And then, of course, minimize, I guess, what we're doing with updating the information, because we've got to fit it into our spare time.
Right.
And we've got, I don't know how many properties within our district.
Yeah, I mean, that's partly one of the reasons why I'm saying this, because there's no reason for the commission to be finding who the owners when we have that access to that information. But I think in terms of like frequency and that sort of thing, maybe that could be a future conversation. You know, I think our goal right now is to try and get it updated by this fall, because there is, you know, lots to get in there. I mean, sort of can updates on particular forms have been done, but right, in terms of comprehensive going in and updating that, it hasn't really been.
This will be the first time in 30 years.
So that's kind of a big undertaking, but once it's done, you know, I think that would be a good conversation as how frequently, you know, do we want to do this?
Inventory wide, the first time to be an updated work effort in 30 years, but I'm sure there've been properties over the years.
Individually added.
Right.
Updated because somebody wants to add a bedroom to the back end of the house, and so hopefully that information ends up in the inventory sheet, continuation sheet, I guess.
Well, for instance, let's look at a specific one. We approved the atrium project for the Victorian house on Eighth Avenue.
Mhm.
And we now know that it was completed and done well. Did that, just using that as an example, did that change get into the inventory?
Well,
Likely not.
Right, we have not really been updating inventory, but I can explain what the process is when someone does come in to do a project on a historic property, then I go in and look at the permit history, like what has been done, what's approved, so that we do have access to those records, but it hasn't been transcribed or incorporated into the inventory. So that's part of this goal is including that permit history in the inventory document itself.
Okay.
Well, should we maybe put something in here that asks for a report, knowing that it's gonna be further on, later in the year, that the, information that's in the GIS and in the assessor's office and such does get transferred over and updated in the inventory.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I think that might be I won't be here too, but I should see staff reporting back, like, this is where we've gotten. I think that may be the future conversation of how often should this be done. I also don't know, like, this is sort of a separate document. So I think that could be a future conversation in terms of how often do we do this and, but.
I guess maybe this is the question is, which will be the most efficient and, I don't want to say complete way, is for us to get that information and turn it in all on one sheet, or to give you just about the condition and a photograph and expect / hope that the information will get all the other basic information get transferred over, and the two of them will then be combined
Yeah.
with an updated DPR in the inventory.
Right, and it's not necessarily a requirement that, it's sort of more what work the commission wants to take on. If you want to go be looking at properties in the district and looking at the condition. But yeah, certainly I think, because we do have that information already, it's more a matter of transcribing into the inventory. So it seems like a lot of extra work, unnecessary work for the commission to be trying to visit. And I know you said you went to talk to property, but that's like so time consuming to contact them for every property in your district. That would be, when we already have that information, but.
Can we get back to this continuation sheet?
Yeah.
Clear on what that is. Is
Yeah.
that different from this documented condition?
Yeah, so the continuation sheet, I sent that to you previously, but I think what makes the most sense is that the county, because we're gonna have to be adding, I don't think I did it in this packet, but
No, it's not in the packet, but I
yeah.
think there was an email that was sent out.
Yeah, I actually have, I brought this, I can show you, I have the felt coverage bridge thing here, so this is what it looks like. It's sort of like an addendum that you.
An addendum to this.
Yeah, so I had initially sent it out thinking the commission could like complete these, but I think what makes the most sense is for the commission just to send us information like, 940 Heem Road or whatever, and then you would include the information and staff would complete these continuation sheets, because we'll need to be like including, updated owner name and permit history and that sort of thing, so.
So if we had, each commissioner will conduct 3 site visits quarterly, so there's 5 of you, so that's 15 per quarter. We have 250 DPR forms.
Yeah.
250? Is that right?
Somewhere in there, I forget the exact numbers.
I had hooked on to a number of 140, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, more than 200. But it's not a requirement that the commissioners do this. It's more just, it would be helpful to us if you're aware of, and I think it honestly relates more, so for this process, but I think honestly it relates more to the future work on an ordinance to prevent demolition by neglect, and that's what that form is kind of about. It's like, we notice this property in our district where they're really not taking care of it and we're concerned, or, but, the information will be helpful in terms of this work, but.
So on that action item number 1, 3 site visits per commissioner, again, it's 15 per quarter, and you've got 250, so that you can see there's gonna be not enough time.
Well,
Not enough work effort in between now and the fall.
Right, well, that's why I'm saying it's not like, we're not expecting that as part of this process, we're not expecting that the commissioners are gonna visit every property in the district, so that's not an expectation. It's more, I think it's more focused on when you're aware of a structure in your district that's in poor condition or not being maintained, you can submit that information to staff, and then
Criteria.
and then
This
we.
could also be like a 2, 3, 4, 5-year goal as well. We don't need to.
Yeah, right, yeah,
It's a-
yeah,
an ongoing.
Yeah, it's
right, right.
Yeah,
I think,
To some of what Linda actually was bringing up, could we, when commissioners make these site visits, take these pictures and provide the information, then all the other changes that have happened can happen on the site, and then staff eventually gets it all done once we're all done over time.
Yeah, I mean, we do have the permit history already, so we can incorporate that. I think it's more just helping us to, especially for the demolition by neglect, maybe helping us to identify things where maybe work has been done that wasn't permitted, or structures in general that aren't being maintained, and the maintenance part isn't really, well, I mean, it is helpful to know, like, oh, this structure is deteriorated, so that's important information to include in the inventory as well. But-
Annie, you were referring earlier to sort of a revitalization of this internally within the planning department. Have they brought on either a new hire or moved somebody into the position where they have direct responsibility for the inventory? Is there anybody in the department?
Well, that is
How's it
essentially
being managed?
historic resources staff, so,
So yourself,
right, or Matthew, right.
and then, and now Matthew is going to have some assistance from Fernando, all right?
Right.
It's, considering that this is a small part for either of you, of your job assignment, I think it's a big challenge, a huge challenge to be able to get this done. This is a squeeze on you guys. Really, let's be empathetic to that, is that, they give us 100% of their attention when we're in session, but then we're a very small part of the rest of what they do.
squeeze, operative word. I love to be squeezed. On my birthday.
Okay, so good.
What's that?
your birthday, okay.
So we'll visit these sites and we'll do a visual, and for instance, going back to the Rice House, they recently put on a new roof. I'll make it up and say,
Exactly right.
since the
DPR.
DPR from 30 years ago, and I even noticing a new roof, here's a photograph.
That is the most common thing.
And they already, I'm certain they went through the permit process to do that. So you'll already have that permit information, but I'm still gonna relay it to you because that's what I'm seeing visually.
Yeah,
Imagine if purpose of this is to say, oh, look, they put a new roof on this. And then maybe the staff will be like, we don't see any permits for this. Like, this can like catch certain
right.
discrepancies.
So let me throw this out there for you guys to consider. If you've been established in this community for a long time, and you've been on this commission for a long time, or somehow integrate with it for many years, you'll probably be able to say, that's a historic building, that's a historic building, that's a historic building. I don't know about that one, I don't know about that one. If you're new to the commission and new to the community, it's gonna be much more difficult for you.
Well, they have DPR forms for the district business, so.
Okay, so that was where I was getting at.
Okay, yeah.
She has DPR forms, hard copy
Yes.
for your district.
Yes.
Okay, so, and there's an address and a census parcel number and a crappy photograph. Right? Basically a silhouette, a black silhouette of the building.
Yeah.
So, but that's better than nothing, I suppose. Good. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I had thought that maybe a fresh list would be helpful for everybody. I'd written you a.
Oh, right, Yeah, I can send that, I haven't had a chance to do that, but yeah, we can.
What does that mean, a fresh list?
I just thought that, as a refresher, a list of your historic properties sent to each commissioner, like, as a refresher, mine somewhere, I don't have easy access.
Yeah, that's how we do that.
What's fresh list?
Well, so we have a list of,
A three-ring binder of his planning area?
no, we have a list, of, properties that went in the L combined district that are historic, so we can send that out for the commissioners.
And Annie, sorry, I do not remember seeing, DPRs for my area.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, then we need to get those to you.
It's something she can't do on the website.
Not yet, right, yeah. Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I mean, it's possible, but the only
This-
thing I have is, that I know I have is.
Well, that's what I mean, inventory. So, right, some of these terms are new, but the DPR form stands for the Department of Parks and Recreation form, and that if you have the inventory pages for it, like this is the DPR here.
Yeah, but that's what I don't.
You don't
have.
have.
What I have is the actual inventory, the list of everything in the county.
Oh, so that's what you buy inventory, the list.
Yeah.
Okay, then we need to get these to you, yeah.
And I was asking whether we should send out a fresh list of that she does have.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's possible I have to somewhat, but I don't.
No, and that would be good because my previous commissioner, Margaret Kennedy, I have hers and I've got a DPR for all of the inventory. But she has marked up the index in the front for the various towns in San Lorenzo Valley. So I've got these arrows
Oh,
and
right, okay,
notes and crossouts and things. So it'd be nice to have a clean,
right.
some clean indexes.
Are we gonna continue to use this form to make our notes, or were you saying we're changing that?
Yeah. Yes, that relates to this goal as well as goal 3B, I think it is, which is sort of addressing the
Yeah.
neglect of identifying properties that aren't being maintained, but yeah, that could be used for both.
Should we send an inventory to everybody across the board?
Well, I think especially once it's scanned, it'll be so easy to do that. Right now, I think I've given paper copies to everybody, so that could be part of it once it's scanned to send it out to everybody.
But I mean, an immediate this week.
I have my copies, you provided them to me already.
I might have them somewhere, but.
I guess I'll leave that to you.
I feel like you would have been super organized in getting it to me.
Well, that's
but-
what it is. When you go home, see if you have it or not. If you don't have it, reach out to me, copy to Andy if you want,
I'll see if I can find mine. Go ahead.
and then
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
Yeah,
It was
we-
provided during orientation.
But
So if you have.
Well, and that's it somehow for you, so it's possible,
we do
so
that
yeah,
orientation on the phone.
okay, then, yeah.
But I might, okay, and actually, thank you, I don't have it.
You don't have it.
Sorry about that.
No, you've been great, don't worry.
Okay, so how do we, continue on? Do we have any further work on goal 2?
So should we not have the part that we will document any changes on the continuation sheet?
Well, I think, I guess the only thing is you could just cross out on continuation sheet, because I think the idea is you still documentation, you don't have to do it on a continuation sheet. I mean, yeah, the county can do that.
Yeah, you just give us the notes.
Thank you, Emily, for clarifying.
Well, the reason I asked about that one form, if that's how we make our business, I don't think I received a copy of this
Okay,
form.
I thought I sent it out via email, a blank form, but if not, we can send it out,
Okay.
yeah,
I could search through my old emails, but.
okay, yeah, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I perceive sending it out across the board would probably be a simple thing to do to make sure everybody has. it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, are we ready to move on to goal 3A?
Let's do that.
So update demolition ordinance.
Okay, so this is something that I was planning to bring to your commission this meeting. I've just been so busy. I think this is 3D. I don't have the second slide for 3A, but I've been so, at the last meeting, I brought a proposal for updating the ordinance, but I just have not had an opportunity to finish that, so that'll be hand it over to Matthew, and I'm sure he'll do a great.
And yeah,
job.
and I have my materials that you gave us last week.
Okay, yeah, so, we're still planning to proceed as we had talked about of addressing, some of the mitigations from the sustainability update in terms of making sure that, one part is reviewing any proposed demolition of a structure or 50-year-olds that hasn't been previously surveyed, when they're proposing demolition, to codify that in an ordinance, or to do it as a process, but to codify that. And then, the second one, which actually isn't available on here, it's probably not a separate slide, but is, updating the information in the code about if there is demolition of historic resources, all the documentation that's required, so to include some more details on that. And then the third is, which is when there's sort of an additional incentive, whereby an owner of a property would consider additional uses in certain zone districts, that aren't otherwise allowed in that zone district, where it helps support the, maintenance or rehabilitation of a historic property.
So what needs to be done to complete this goal?
Well, it's a matter.
Is it discussion, or do we need to make a motion and vote? What do we do?
I think it's just a matter of Matthew bringing it for your commission to consider at a future meeting.
Yeah, we have to wait for the county to take action first.
Right, yes,
The
exactly.
county has to take action
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
If I can add something, for most of you commissioners, you were not with us during the, fire, in Rio Del Mar at the tavern, at the Seabreeze Tavern. Okay, what happened was that the Seabreeze Tavern went through a series of different things. This is gonna sound shocking to you, but the property was sold in January to a new owner, January of 2020, right before COVID. The guy took ownership in February. He never got to open the bar. We were shut down in March. He never got to open the bar he had just bought and paid for. Somehow, that bar burned down in June. And then we couldn't get him to clean up his own mess. So the way the guy got out of it was he sold the property at a loss 8 months after he purchased it. He purchased a bad condition building. He sold a burnt down piece of property. Took a loss, but that got him out of it. Then the new owner then agreed to finish the demolition and mitigate the danger that was deemed by the county for pieces of building falling down on citizens. So it was a very tricky thing. It's not directly the demolition by neglect ordinance that would have totally changed it, but it would have changed some of the legal part to make the guy clean up after his own mess. That's what they would have forced him to do that. Did I about say that correctly?
I think so, yeah, I think we might wanna change the names of these goals, because it's confusing, because 3B is more about demolition by neglect, which is a separate thing. I think we might want it, this ordinance kind of addresses various things, but anyway.
What would you suggest the name?
3A versus 3B.
Yeah, maybe, historic cleanup ordinance, maybe it's just kind of some,
Well, what does the planning department call it? Demolition ordinance?
I don't think we have a name for it.
And I haven't been here long enough to know what.
It addresses, it addresses, I guess, three different issues, so, we could call it historic cleanup ordinance maybe for now.
Okay.
Sure, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then demolition is set as 3B.
Yeah.
But this is interesting that we're considering this as part of an ordinance, because the county already requires buildings in that condition to be cleaned up, taken out, and hauled off to the dump.
What are you talking about? What?
For example,
Oh,
Yeah,
why that guy?
you don't need a demolition issue or ordinance associated with historical resources. to get a property owner who suffered a fire to clean up his property, because the county has other avenues to eliminate.
Right, I mean, right, that, I think the idea, and this is really item 3B, but the idea with the demolition by neglect ordinance is more about what do we do? Right now, there's not a requirement in the code to maintain historic buildings, so how do we get people to maintain the historic buildings so they don't just continue to deteriorate to the extent where they have to be demolished and have
And that's different from demolition by neglect.
the demolition by neglect is 3B, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, this.
Okay, so,
So for this one, this is if somebody wants to demolition something and it's over 50 years old. And then we look, well, the planning department looks to see, is there anything historic about it?
Okay, so we're on 3A and. then-
Yes.
Okay, so your example is not like the example Barry shared.
Right, it's different, that's different.
Yeah.
They got melded together, they're two
I
different
got it.
things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, because we haven't updated our inventory since 94. And that's one of our issues is that we don't have any buildings on it from like the 40s, 50s, 60s and
Right.
on. So our concern is somebody coming along buying a property built in 1967
Right,
that is historic
right.
and says, well, but I want a newer, bigger.
Well, we have an avenue now today where somebody comes in and wants to tear down a building from 1965 or whatever, that's our threshold, 40 years over, 50 years. 50 years, thank you. I think the numbers changed over the years, but it's 50 years, yeah. So they come in, they go to development review with an application, pay their fees, and it should be, something comes to you, right?
well, so we do have we essentially, for item 1A, we essentially do this already where it's 50 years old, but it's more a matter of codifying it into the code and saying, you know, that you need a permit. So it's a matter of sort of codifying our current practice where we do, yeah, and that was part of the sustainability up to EIR, you know, they looked at potential impacts to historic resources. So that's
Codifying
one of
here
the-
in Santa Cruz County code, but state law already requires that we review these units, these residential units or these structures per CEQA requirements.
Right, so it's codifying into our
So
code.
it's codified at the state level through the CEQA process and perhaps other avenues, but apparently we don't have it here at the local level.
Well, codifying into the code, and that was, in the sustainability update as a mitigation.
There you go, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
Right, so this will basically be coming, as Barry said, you know, this is action that staff needs to take, and then will come in. And the commission at the last meeting did support the overall, you know, provisions in this, but it needs to be written at this ordinance and budget.
So when should we expect this to come back to us? And then will it require us to do any kind of motion and voting?
I'll require.
You're looking at me?
We haven't talked about timing yet, so, yeah.
He's the puppet master.
And Mark's looking at Matt, and Matt.
That's right.
And Mark was looking at Gavin. Go over there.
Carlos is looking at the board of supervisors.
I
So,
think you got some big goals on 3B, so maybe you can look at that.
So as far as the timing goes, the next month, I'll be able to understand better what's gonna happen, because our housing element's gonna come back January 15th from the Housing and Community Development Department. And my time is gonna get splintered between historical resources and housing element, but I don't know to what extent. And
do you want to say then the April meeting? Or, I mean, July? Because it sounds like you're just coming back with a report.
yeah, I think April would be
I
second.
do April, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Linda's job is to nail you guys into a schedule.
Yeah.
And, you know, and if we can't, and if it's not there, we defer it to the next. meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right.
So, all right then, so that will be for both A1 and 1B?
Well, 3B is a different.
No, no, what B?
Right, okay, right.
3A.
1A. Gotcha, yes, those are both part of the state board.
Okay, So that would be, all right.
So if you heard correctly, there's one missing here that will also be here.
Right.
And then,
Yes. That is about, additional documentation, and I have, I'll obviously.
So that would be item 1B essentially.
So you're talking about the, filling out a DPR form?
No, this is about documentation or demolition of a historic resource, so that's actually designated.
So I need to add a 1C here?
Yes.
That's sort of adding additional language about.
And that's something we're waiting for that the county was providing.
Right.
Are there guidelines on how to demo? Because going back to Barry's example with the sea breezes, I know that there were certain items that were in the sea breeze when it burnt down that could have been deemed historic, but were swept away in the demo process before anybody could get in there and say, oh, wait, this is.
We were working with a real uncooperative owner.
Right.
And I believe he was not local.
Right, he was.
And so, we were aware, we got in there once for 5 minutes. Oh.
Yeah,
I
did.
terrible.
Yeah,
Oh.
the current owner, I wouldn't call him, the original owner, right, was
No,
uncooperative.
the guy that bought it has
Right,
cooperated.
yes.
The,
right.
the current owner has been very
Yeah,
cooperative.
the one who owned it when it burnt down was.
Right.
That's, that short-term guy.
Yeah, but that's why I'm wondering if is there a certain language in the demo process that says, you know.
That if something can be salvageable.
Yes, exactly, yes,
Yeah, there's language there, we're not
okay,
planning to alter that, it's more about, there's certain guidelines like of certain types of photos that you take before it's demoed and
Yeah.
like construction drawing, showing how it was constructed and that sort of thing, that's part of the record, but
okay.
yeah,
We're still talking 3A.
3A, yes.
Okay.
We have,
Okay. All right, ready?
Can we good, are we at 3B?
3D. Okay, demolition by neglect. And so, where are we on that?
Right, so this is, as I was mentioning before, when we were talking about 3A, this is trying to address structures that historically designated buildings that aren't being maintained and that are deteriorating. And a lot of communities do have, requirements in their code that say you have to maintain historic buildings, or like the city of Watsonville just has a general code requirement you have to maintain all buildings. So we have like a dangerous building code where it becomes dangerous, or, that then we flag it. But otherwise we don't really have a way to say, oh, and this is an example that I did of the old Buckhart's Candies, it's now a coffee shop, that they like the siding, like you can see the roofing is not being maintained and siding, so, yeah, and this is sort of a longer term goal because anytime we add requirements that property owners have to do new things, it's often not popular. So this is sort of a more long-term effort. How do we do this? How do we gain community support? And, but the way that the commission helped with this is, and that relates to the inventory too, but, with those DPR forms, being aware of like, oh, this building is not being maintained and we want to note this and, and that can help support, I think, the demolition by neglect of like that buildings aren't being maintained. And I think, that'll probably be a future conversation with Matt in terms of the parameters of that, but,
Where's this building on the scale, 1 through 5?
I believe this is in our 5, locally significant.
The location is very prominent. It's potentially, let's put it this way. 35 years ago when we moved here and it was completely intact and functioning as a legitimate candy store. It was Buckhart's Candies, and they were chocolate makers on property. They were like an independent Seeds. Very nice, really appreciated. They did a certain amount of tourist business just because of the location and the windmill. It's right on the curve coming up, from Twin Lakes, coming up from, the Yacht Harbor, onto East Cliff. And it's right at the site of one of the nicest redevelopment agency projects that was done in Live Oak. It's, the property around it is quite beautiful. So it sticks out because it's now pieces of the building are falling down. And I think it's operating as some kind of a part-time bike repair and part-time coffee shop by some hippie types.
Yeah, it's a nice little coffee shop, and I think it's more, I mean, I don't think it's so much about I think they're tenants in the building, it's not so much about
So landlord.
right, yeah, the property owner, so, yeah.
But it's it could be a premium property.
Right, and it's a beautiful, kind of whimsical, like.
Has anybody spoken with the property owner?
He did call me because they were talking about doing some kind of alteration in the back. And I'm like, I'm so glad you called because, we really want to help you maintain this building and let's talk about it. He said, oh yeah, I set a meeting with him and he's like, oh gosh, I have a work conflict. I'll call you back. And that's the last I heard. So yeah, it's a problem because we don't have a way to say, you need to.
How do you help somebody who may not have the money to do it?
Right, and so the idea with like the demolition by neglect ordinance or some kind of, it doesn't even have to be called demolition by neglect, it could be called historic property maintenance ordinance, where it's like, I think if we, like, for instance, right now, it's more a matter of painting and getting a new roof as opposed to reconstruction, where if you flag it early, that your window's broken, you need to fix your window, that would be a way to address it instead of like the Redmond house, where it's like, this is a, $10 million project and you have to do this. It's like, that's not really.
Are these shingles here or is this rolled roofing?
I think it's composition shingles. Yeah. So.
I mean, even rolled roofing would be something to secure the property.
Right. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think this is sort of a long term where it's sort of like community support and getting support from the board of supervisors.
Can I just use Matthew's example for a moment? Okay. Conceptually, I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you. It would be better than nothing. But if they wanted to do rolled roofing on this historic designated building, wouldn't that come straight to us for approval of that roof? And would you guys want to approve a rolled roof for a historic?
I'm not sure what a rolled roof is, honestly, but yeah, I mean, any change. So there's minor alterations to certain properties that are done at staff level, and roofing is typically that, but certainly staff would look at it for like compatibility with the historic character and that sort of
Let
thing.
me take you back to your grandfather's house in Kansas City. In the back of the yard, there's a little garage, one car garage that took this little Ford, Model T. And the roof was not shingles. The roof was probably what they call
Tar paper.
Tar paper. Okay.
It's rolled out, but it's better than tar paper because actually it's oil based and it's heavy. It's a heavy gauge rolled roofing. It typically comes in a green color or a black color or a speckled gray, black gray. And it's cheap and it's easy to put on. All you need is the tar muck in a bucket and swap it around and
Right,
roll.
well,
And that's what, if this man here is, or woman, or whoever owns this, has a limited budget, it's possible to maintain, the roof and the integrity of the building, but I would rather not see rolled roofing.
right, I mean, that's sort of a staff question, but I think the idea of the ordinance anyway is,
And it is.
you're not maintaining your roof, so you need
Rolled
to take
roofing
care
is
of it.
reversible.
Right, that's something too, so, yeah, so this is something, the commission, has been interested in helping with, I think, of, identifying properties where they're not maintaining them and using that form and including photos and, definitely.
So-
send it out to you.
So the planning department, you will be bringing proposed parameters for an ordinance, and we don't have those yet.
Well, I think it would be, I think partly it would be getting support from the board for this kind of effort and then talking about, I think it'd also be talking with the commission about, what we want to include, how we want to approach it and that sort of thing.
So I think it would make sense, in my opinion, it would make sense in the case of, 3A and 3B, for me to submit to this commission my best foot forward on these ordinances. And we massage it and, compare it to other jurisdictions and see, the veracity of it all, and then once you get it, the holy waters.
Well, that's a dandy idea. I would suggest, would you want to report back to us perhaps, for the, third quarterly meeting? Take 6 months on this?
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen with the house.
Set it as an update next in July and see what you can get done between now and then.
Yeah, for both 3A and 3B.
Well, that's what I was just looking, because we've got 3A as April meeting.
No, let's push it back. There's enough on his plate.
Yeah, I mean, 3A is pretty close to being done, but certainly, you know, if you want to combine, we could do that.
If I can make 3A happen for April, I will.
And we'll
Okay.
moving forward.
Yeah, I think 3B is just gonna be trickier because it is gonna need board support and it might be controversial, whereas 3A is.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure we remember that at the July meeting is when we get our law report.
Right,
So,
so we know that's a time consuming.
yes, we don't want to fill July too full.
No, but
Okay,
I love that we're looking forward at our agendas, so now we know that we've got 3 things on our July agenda, so we'll be careful of overloading it.
what else do we have on July?
Matthew's report is the second thing.
Oh, he said he was gonna do the 3A still on April.
No, he said if he could.
If he could, so
If he
that-
could, but we're basically assigned to go for July.
Yeah, and 3B definitely for July, and 3A, we'll see how this works.
Oh, okay,
Well, again, ultimately, he's the puppet master, Mark,
yeah,
and things come in, from day to day, and assignments get tweaked a little bit, and we have to prioritize.
Absolutely.
And then ultimately, the board of supervisors also sort of sets our work program, so that could also.
If
just-
they have some hot new idea, you have to put everything aside and do
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, we're policy basically.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
policy.
yeah.
So it's come in, so,
Annie,
yeah.
what are the chances that we could architect 3A and 3B together? I realize there's a board component to this, but could we?
Right, well, that's what, I mean,
That's how I'm looking at it.
That's,
As
that's
a one
the
ordinance.
choice, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
way to go, I
That's
just
how
think
I'm looking at it.
3B, right, I think 3B would, I think before you get too far with that, we would want to get like board support or, you know,
Yeah.
so, anyway, yeah,
How
certainly.
would we get board support? How would you envision that, Mark, and Andy? Just as,
You had to schedule a proposal and go to the board, say, March, April, around that timeframe. And then that would give you some direction to move forward into the summer.
Or even like, I mean, we can talk about
Yeah.
afterwards, but even like approaching one board member and seeing if they're interested, you know, supporting it or, so.
Having the board take it as an item could be one option too,
ideally, consent item, approve staff, to work on that.
Yeah, ideally, yeah, make it a consent, boom, no discussion there.
Yeah, and then it gets back to the board as an official ordinance that they can do that or do that.
yeah. Mhm.
Now, not wishing to be rude, but wishing to preserve the integrity of your day, let's see if we can push our meeting forward here. Are we ready for number 5 yet? Or I'm sorry, for number 4? Well,
no, it'd be 5.
okay,
Budget program.
Yep.
And,
I think that we have a certain oversight on this that comes from above. And as I have named to this group before, having met with Assistant CAO Nicole Coburn in January, she told me that the county is looking at, that the CAO's office in the county is looking at a 3-year recessive budget, where they're basically not taking on new expenses for the next 3 years and keeping things very tight. If that changes during the 3 years, then it'll change. But right now, they're trying to take a longer term view of it. So they put this 3-year cap on. And also, it was told to me in that same conversation that it's important to recognize that the commissions are very strongly appreciated, but in the overall structure of county business, the commission management is a lower priority to the county. It's the things we talk about that are the higher priorities. The actual operation of us, they're hoping that we will in fact work closely with our staffers and be assertive in our work to pick up on the county's light staffing. You never have enough staff. The county is underemployed right now. So that's putting a lot more pressure on every single worker, from the highest manager to the lowest.
And they don't look like we're understaffed. Annie's here, Matthew's here, Mark is here, but there's a really good reason for this, as you can surmise.
So you'll notice that, I probably should have, worded it a little bit differently, or I don't know. But basically, this will not be on our, goal watch until we're told by staff that to bring it back up and to look at it.
Yeah.
That we have some strategy going forward.
And just to let you know, I'm a big fan of the Mills Act program, and I personally, I don't think it's such a big deal financially to the county. But right now, the county has narrow focus on funding and limiting any expenditure, because this is gonna translate to an expenditure modestly associated with my time, but also potentially you might have 10 or 20 property owners out there that want to do work according to the
And
preservation
revenues to the county.
and it limits property taxes. But we're talking 13 cents on the dollar, I think, that the county gets back. So you can see it's not a big number. That would be a loss to the county.
It
But
would, yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be nice if there was some way the county could get more, get us and I'm not sure the word, but basically whatever, so we get more money back into the county.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I might suggest too, don't take this off of your goal, turn it into a monitoring goal.
yeah,
So that way
Oh,
staff.
very good, Mark, very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Linda, that's great. Monitor the progress towards the Mills Act becomes the goal.
Okay. Yeah. All right, then, our last goal is the update and maintenance of the HRC website. And Annie, I know you were mentioning that there's been a lot more work since the last time we talked about it.
Well, so, yeah, I did go in and sort of update, make sure the information in there is correct, and we have the contact information in there and the HRC meeting dates and that sort of thing. But the county, is working on a bigger scale update of all the websites for every department. So when I talked to Julie, Neeple here is sort of the person in the CDA department that's kind of spearheading that. And she said it's probably like a year out because it's so comprehensive of doing this sort of, major overhaul. So I think the idea is to get that kind of a draft version of that. And then at that point, we can bring that back to the commission and also the subcommittee to look at, to get feedback on how it's structured and how the information on the HRC is provided and accessible.
But in the interim, we continue to feed new information into the website so that people stay.
And that's the important part. That's the key part right there. Just get something new, add it on.
Yes.
So it's, what started this is Barry and I were on the county website and we had a really hard time finding out information about our commission. And it seemed like there were kind of 2 or 3 different ways and you kind of had to go here to go there. And so we were a subcommittee of 2 to make some suggestions on how to get there, what we wanted, to be shown. Much easier path, but our committee was formed at the same time. The county started updating the website.
Annie has taken initiative and Annie has fixed the core things that were problematic. They were brought to us by a citizen who was up on the site looking for information. Ironically, the citizen was looking in the wrong place. And she came to us saying it doesn't exist. And we were able to say to her, oh, yes, it does. It's over here. So we weren't, but it pointed out that it wasn't the best path to get into it. So I believe you changed some links and things.
Possibly, I don't know.
Oh, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to remember now, but I know in terms of comprehensively reorganizing that, that's sort of on.
That's not,
Yeah.
that's not you.
Right,
I think what you did was you connected some disconnected dots.
Oh.
So that Becky could get to the information of the scheduled meetings that she couldn't
Yeah.
find.
Yeah.
And we did have it and it was posted. So there was just a glitch that didn't get fixed by IT, but got fixed by Ann.
Yeah.
So, it's an ongoing process. And, but the whole thing about this, the same thing comes to mind that comes to mind with the, inventory. And that is that these are tools for the public. Let's recognize that what we're doing is we're creating tools for the public to do business. If somebody wants to buy a property and it's a historic property, they're gonna wanna look at that DPR muy pronto. That's the first place they go to find out if they're in the ballpark and whether the place is gonna require millions of dollars to fix up. The simple thing everybody asks about a historic property. So, we're serving the public by pushing the staff and the county towards, higher fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that's what advisory commissions do. That's exactly what we're here for. So, the necessary evil that we are.
I think just adding in here too, something about maybe in the action, about incorporating a new planning website for HRC. We don't really have anything in here about, it's just update and maintain, but as we all know, there's gonna be an entirely new website that's gonna go to the improvement center.
Grant, thank you for that, Mark.
So
The nice thing
the
about that
action
is-
item would be then a report on the new.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that might be a future action item because I think Julie said it probably is a year out, so I think, I don't even know what it's gonna look like yet, but when there is a website, certainly, right?
Well,
So that the goal would be to monitor the county IT and the evolution of the new website.
Yeah.
Am I right?
And then incorporate all of the HRC information, local history.
Yeah, and then incorporate, then the action item would be to incorporate.
Yeah, and review historic resource information commission, because I think, we want your feedback on that as well.
so it sounds like there's really kind of more. One, maybe a report at the October meeting on the status of the implementation of the new county website. And then the second action item, would that be for maybe the commission that we each go in there and,
Once presented, incorporate HRC information into the planning department website or, maybe, edit.
Yeah. And once they settle on their website, then the various departments will be folded into this new website.
Right, correct. Yeah, I see that.
Aesthetic.
We'll have our little area within the planning
Right.
department website and we can have some influence on how that area looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific idea. You have the subcommittee, Pearlman and Phillips, just keep that.
Absolutely.
That we continue to monitor, have that connection to the commission.
And we'll report October.
because the concern was for the everyday person, they don't know that the HRC is under planning department.
Right.
So they go into a search bar and what are they
Correct,
putting
yeah,
in,
yeah. Right.
And they might not know who their supervisor is,
Yeah.
kind of what district. And so it became very hard then to get to our information when you don't really know how the rest of the county,
Right.
infrastructure is laid out.
And with the new name of the department, it doesn't automatically trigger. Oh, that's where I get permits. It doesn't trigger that connect.
Right.
It's logical,
Yeah.
but it doesn't, it's not automatic.
Right. Yeah, and that's not unusual for county or agency or even company websites. You walk through prickly bramble patch in order to get to where you want to get, if you ever get there.
Well, I find myself often, whenever I talk about this as work I do and like to do, I add in the word advisor. It keeps us healthy to remember that we're giving them good suggestions. We can't require that they take.
Right.
Okay, and so we do a job that, you could say it's one-sided, but we're being asked for our advice. Doesn't mean they're gonna take our advice. Okay, thank you, Linda. Very complete and thorough. And I think we got some really good direction today.
Well, we have one more goal.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Number 11.
I see it over here.
This is the CLG grant. And you, Annie, and you and I kind of talked a little bit on this phone, and it's been mentioned through here. Basically, we would like to work with staff and see if there isn't some way we can provide help, assistance in getting some grant money to accomplish some of the work that we want to do. We feel is necessary for us to be effective
Yeah.
in our goals as a commission.
Well, one of them is the contact statement, the contact statement.
So I think that what we have qualifies for goals, it's the issue of time, personnel, the doing that and how we can help. If we can, we're, I think, very willing to help carry some of the burden, but we don't know how much we
Right.
are allowed to do, what we can do.
Right.
So, we don't need to discuss this now, but definitely this is to bring up and, let's find some time to do it.
Mhm.
And maybe it needs to be a special meeting where we just designate one or two items that you can really go into depth, like maybe the Mills Act and this or something
Right,
that we really can't do during a normal meeting.
right.
All right, then I think that's it.
Okay, now I believe what we did in our sequence is I believe that we have completed 9A and 9C. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, that was because it fell into a natural flow. Please excuse my poor management, but we can go back to 9B for a quickie there. And, if I can kindly ask you to look at the back page of the packet, 9B. And if I could, call upon our colleague, Lucia, to, give us a review of this, very significant subject.
So, Emily, just to bring you up to speed, although I think if you look at it, it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically we'd like to have something that documents our presence when we are out in the community, and either something that we can hang, put on the table, or put in front of the table. So Barry and I researched some of our options. We tried different vendors. As you can see from this, the most, I think, cost-effective strategy was to go with one of these online vendors, just in terms of price and turnaround time. They seem to be really good. The cost of the actual vinyl piece with the grommets on it is actually very low, I think. It's like, $55 to $100, where you end up adding more funding or need for more funding on there is any design work that would have to be done. And that is a piece that we weren't really sure about because we don't have access, or the next step, and maybe I'm getting away from us, is figuring out what we want it to look like and where that artwork would come from. So we might need design from whichever vendor we use.
But what we're thinking is that we can get, like the county logo, through the planning department and have it. So when we're talking about design work, it's a matter of arranging the space and the font, and there's a little bit of design help that we wind up getting from the vendor. We don't know what they're gonna charge for it. We're not gonna give it to them and say, make us a poster and create some beautiful font for a business, and that's not how we're going about it. But in terms of the placement and spacing, we're gonna need a little bit of final assistance. So, yes.
Working at the city, we have guidelines for the fonts we can type to use and the colors to use and, official local files. So I don't know if the county has.
We have the same thing.
We have the
Yeah.
same-
So we probably
Right.
want that guidance prior.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Presuming that today, if you'll go down to next steps, you will see finalized design with logos, font sizes and stuff like that. And we absolutely know that there is a protocol to follow, and our intention is to completely follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea being that, we have now, attended for the last 2 years, we have attended the History Fair, which is a May event. And we have intention of continuing to do that. So that creates a specific goal and date that we want to complete a design. And then we thought if we had it, it would empower us for possibly future possibilities. There's been discussion about going to farmers markets and promoting the whole concept of commissions. And so, there may be abundant future need for the sign, but we know of one specific thing towards which it'll be well-purposed, because we see the amount of effort made by other booths at the History Fair, and we don't want to be the little kid on the block. We want our booth to look genteel.
Do we need a table or something to hang it up on?
They provide a table.
Yeah, usually.
What our thinking is with the signage is we may come back to you and have bought a matching tablecloth. Okay, so that we have like a little kit that we can pull out and use.
Good.
Great.
Okay, so, would you like to add anything else, Lucia?
I think that is about it.
Okay,
Like I said, I felt personally, like it was very reasonable,
we would like to, float a motion, please, to fund this, okay? So
So how much are you asking for?
$200.
Okay, and I did check, and there is, right now, there is $250 available for these types of incidental expenses, I'm calling that category.
Thank you, that's great. So can someone please, Lucia, would you care to make a proposal?
I make a proposal that the committee, or sorry, the commission approve the $200 in order for us to procure a bid.
Can we use all $240?
Yeah, sort of. Yes. I mean.
Does that include the additional cost here for artwork? I'm just reading this into the price. So $200 is the banner, and then you've got another.
No, $100 is the banner, and then the second $100 was that your offers.
Yeah, so what
May or
we,
may not need.
what we need to happen is
Up to 200.
submitting the receipts from.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And we do have 240. I would consider, I think you should consider up to 240, just use the entire budget potentially.
Is that an annual? So we get it again in 2024?
Fiscal year, yeah,
Fiscal year.
yes.
So we get it again in July.
The aesthetics of, let's say, a 5x3 versus a 6x4 or 6x3.5, something like that.
Part of the consideration has to be the relativity of the sizing to the application. So for instance, if you wanted to hang it from a table
Right.
down to the floor, you don't want it more than 3 feet. So we'll get it as big as we can use it, we're gonna make it.
That makes sense, yeah. Okay.
That's also where the other tablecloth came in, so if we need, to decorative larger space,
Right,
if we had something matching, we
right.
could do that. But also, sometimes you just don't know what situation. you're
Okay,
in.
well, anyway, it's your decision how you wanna take the,
Yeah.
money with
And,
us.
next year, we're going to ask for the brochure that we'll use the $200 to make, that we'll put on the table. But we're happy to have a table.
Yeah. So I motion that, the commission approve up to $240 in support of acquiring a banner. I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, let's call for a vote. Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Newhouse.
Aye.
Commissioner Orlando.
Aye.
Commissioner Britton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Coleman. Aye. Great. Okay. There we go. Back to subcommittee.
Nothing other than-
Okay, we're sending this back to subcommittee. Chief.
Okay.
Let's hope they know what they're doing.
Yes.
All right, so, let's continue then, please. That's item 9B, completing items, in the 9 category. Moving on to 10, commissioner presentations and informal items. Informational items. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss?
Yeah, I brought it up earlier in the meeting that, community member Becky Steinbrenner, who we're familiar with here, she contacted Supervisor Zach Friend and myself to speak at a presentation, a memorial event that, so there's a highway, there's a World War I memorial that is currently sitting on the side of Freedom Boulevard in Aptos, intersection of Highway 1 and Freedom Boulevard, right before you get to the high school there.
The commission is familiar with the monument.
Yes, exactly. The new people about maybe. So this is the monument is 100 years old. It was presented by the Daughters of the American Revolution on Christmas Day of 1923. And so we're approaching the 100-year anniversary of it. And so the Cabrillo Host Lions Club, who Becky is part of, they are responsible for maintaining the monument, or they've taken it upon themselves to maintain the monument and the area around it. And they thought, what better time to celebrate it than the 100-year anniversary? And so we were contacted to go out and speak. Supervisor Friend was there. He gave a little talk. I was asked to give a little bit of history about the surrounding area, not necessarily about the monument itself, but about the surrounding area, the Broadway Junction area of what it was known as before the freeway was put in. And it was a great event.
How many people attended?
There was I would say about 30 people were there. It was mostly members of the Cabrillo Host Lions Club and then also the Daughters of the American Revolution. Some community members, but it was.
There is some importance to this. I'm very happy that you were there, and I'm very happy that you're delivering this report.
Yeah.
Earlier I made the statement very intentionally that the commission is familiar with it. Preceding your participation, Becky approached us about a year and a half ago. And the idea was she wanted the Historic Resources Commission to make that World War I monument into a historic site. Okay, so what was required was entertain discussion here, and what we determined and actually voted on was that we would support the idea of making it a historic site if the Cabrillo Lions wishes to fill out a DPR and go through the process. If that came to us and conformed to county requirements, that we would be favorable to it. Okay, so just trying to show them our support. Whether they're going to spend the $6,000 to $9,000 to do the DPR, now the pedal hits the metal and we'll see what happens. But our job is to tell them how we feel about it and why would.
Yeah, I being familiar with the Cabrillo Host Lions, I know that that's not in their budget, but they may get a regional or a district statewide grant that gives them some spending money somewhere down the line, and so it's possible that.
Or somebody could die and leave them the money.
Exactly, exactly. But the point is that we, as a commission, have given our approval that if you want to go through the process, you may do so. And I will just say, they're doing a fine job maintaining it. It looks
It's a
good.
pretty little well landscaped
There's
little thing.
the flags, it's now more noticeable than it ever was before. And just a point of note, several years ago, it was located a little bit further back on the side, on the frontage road of Highway 1. And that spot is, it's a turnoff. It's not completely overgrown. 99% of the people who would drive past it didn't even know it was there. So now they did move it. I shouldn't say this was taken on by an Eagle Scout member several years ago to move it into a more prominent location. And and it is what it is. It's there, it's visible. It's not the most walkable location.
You have to park your car about 200-300 yards away.
But it does catch your eye now that there's flowers and flags surrounding it. So as long as they are maintaining the area around it, I think it's a great thing.
That's right, those Boy Scouts are rocking.
There's no negative, there's no negatives here.
Right.
And, you know, it may not appear significant to us, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just a good thing.
Well, I felt that it was, you know, as a new commissioner and having Becky reach out to me personally to do it, I thought, not only as a historian would I have done it anyway, but it's a good way to show that, you know, we are there and we listen to the community.
And it serves a secondary purpose.
And it's a monument to
World War I veterans.
Santa Cruz County World War I
veterans.
There's a secondary purpose, and I am saying this with total sincerity to everyone. By our fulfilling these small roles, we build confidence with our constituency. Building confidence with Becky is a good thing.
Absolutely.
End of story. It's a good thing.
And it was printed, there's an article printed in the Aptos Times with photographs, and it even says Kevin, who helps with the Santa Cruz Historic Resources Committee. It gives us some.
Yeah.
Terrific.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Terrific. And over time, it appears as though we have growing support from our constituency, and it's probably based on doing small things like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So thank you very much for that report. I also have something to report, which is kind of interesting. Annie sent out a note about the Blue Plaque Committee looking for committee members. The Blue Plaque has been an irritant to our commission on several occasions. There's nothing wrong with it. The existence of blue plaques has created some confusion in the past about historic designations that has come to the commission. How better to take care of that conflict? I stepped up to the plate and wrote back to Ann Jenkins. I had a conversation with Ann Jenkins. They're going to float my name to be a blue plaque committee member at their January meeting. And I think I'll be joining the Blue Plaque Committee. I am doing that strictly because I am on the commission. And I think that there's some interesting coordination that can only smooth things out. Okay, I had to respond in an emergency basis to a very emotional complaint from some business owners on the corner of 30th and Portola, who felt honestly in their hearts that their blue plaque was going to protect their little shack of a building from being torn down. And I had to go over, hold hands, chat with them, listen to them, wanting to hear what they had to say, only to find out that this girl says, "I'm friends with your son and I've been in your house 100 times. Who knows? But she's a grown-up now, so she doesn't look like that little kid. But the idea was that their considerations were valid. They were very proud of their blue plaque and they felt their blue plaque protected them. In fact, it does not. Okay, and I think I can help clarify that distinction for a lot of people. So why not? I'm gonna check these guys out and I will give you a further report when I have more information.
So my being the replacement to Annie, I'm gonna exercise a little bit of my position It's 12:30. That's 3 hours at it. We have one more item.
Yep.
And maybe one more item after that.
Okay, having completed, commissioner presentations, we now have staff updates and written communications. Okay,
So let's see, I do have an update. Linda, sent me a email, I guess someone in your community had, commented that the building, Park Hall in Ben Lomond,
Yeah, the building next door to
Right.
Park Hall.
right, yeah, that there was a fire and it was leaning against Park Hall, so we had, building inspector go out on Friday. They did say that it actually was in danger of collapsing and actually falling on Park Hall, so they red tagged it, and I have.
They did?
Yeah, so
Wow.
thank you for.
good
pointing that out.
shot.
So I'll follow up with them, I haven't, since it just happened, I haven't had a chance to find out what their next step is, but it is red tagged, so they.
Well, the comments are gonna be very angry.
Okay. Well, your name won't go into it, but anyway, it's, that's one of the rules of the county, like, is flagging dangerous buildings, that was, the debrief, where it's like, it's gonna fall down to somebody, then something needs to happen, or, fall down and abuse the building, especially when it's a story, so, yeah, so,
Thank you,
Learn that,
thank you
yeah.
so very much.
Yeah.
Danny, and talk about having some positive impact. That's the teamwork. I appreciate your calling her. I appreciate your following up and getting it done.
Yeah. And then just want to note that Matthew will be bringing that, but chapter 2.38 is, the chapter in the county code that addresses commission structures, and the county has been, undergoing an effort to sort of, make these processes for different commissions, more similar and unified, so there are some changes that are coming up. I won't detail them now, but that will sort of affect, like, when, nominating chair and vice chair, and when the meeting schedule is set and that sort of thing, so.
So kind of standardize it across.
Yeah,
the commission.
that's the word, yes.
Protocol.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think those are the extent of my, staff comments.
Okay, Matthew, would you like to walk us through item 12, the written communication from Nathan?
I don't know if we need to walk through or not.
I don't know, yeah.
Send it out. I
Remember
didn't
name
talk
it?
about this.
We did already discuss a lot of this.
Yep.
Yeah,
So why don't we just, pivot off of this that we've had.
Taken, okay.
Just,
We're just accepting the letter into our minutes, because it was sent in a timely way.
Yeah.
And we'll add Virginia's letter that was sent to you over the weekend to that. What folks might be, well advised, and may I take just a moment to share this with all commissioners. If you have any citizens who have any business to bring to us, okay? Both this letter of September 30th, I will point out the timing. We had an October 2nd meeting. How the heck are we gonna do anything if we get a letter on September 30th? And the letter that we got, the other one, was, sent out on Friday afternoon, for the Monday meeting. So again, we're honoring them. We're doing everything we can to incorporate it and bring it forward. But, tell your people to try to give us lead time. If any of the people in your districts want to present anything, please try to give us lead time. Okay, so on that note, the last item is to review items for our future agenda for our next meeting.
seems like we did a lot of that for the last.
I think we've got,
well,
yeah.
but can we go through the list, and I think I have some things to add.
Oh, let's do it. Well, the list.
Okay, so what I have down, is, we were going to, have the letter of support for the purchase of the Rice House come before the board. And were we going to, continue any discussion on the pump track?
Yes,
Okay,
Annie's gonna check whether the park is historic, and pivoting on that, we're gonna move forward.
okay. And though I know our fiscal, year is July to June, in January, we get a report on where our budget stands. So looking at money toward a consultant if we need it, money for training for the year. And then Alba Schoolhouse, I should be able to make a report on Alba Schoolhouse.
He said Albert,
No, ALBA.
Alba.
It's a
A
reconstructed
value.
schoolhouse from this, CSE,
It burned down in the CCU fire.
That's
And the issue is getting it rebuilt because it's on land owned by the school district. And then I would like to add on, in regards to the landmarks awards, that are handed out. We, usually hand out at least one, certificate of appreciation for a property. So in January, I'd like to open discussion on what property we would like to give a certificate to, and this is toward either the owner or the developer, the builder that has basically restored, rehabilitated a historic property, or has over the years maintained it so it stayed in good condition.
And it's a piece of paper with a,
Yeah, it's a certificate, and what we do see with the blue plaques, they typically look at either the architecture or the architect.
okay,
For us, because this building has been there all this time, it's more of a going back to the history. Why is it on the inventory, and appreciation that it's continued to be maintained, or if there's been any restoration done,
okay.
that they did a good job in maintaining it.
Acknowledge all the good work that's been done.
Yeah.
Very good.
Also, Matthew, we were talking about January, you were going to present some, training opportunities for 2024.
Right.
So, we found recently that by doing this 5 minutes at the end, that it keeps us refreshed. We all leave with a list and we better prepare for the next meeting. Because we don't get our minutes until close to the next meeting.
I think the training discussion is also often good as rather than Matthew recording a training opportunities for the commission to come with ideas too.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes we have great ideas about, why don't we bring a speaker on this topic, or so.
Well, this idea of combining with the city, is something I'm gonna look into myself. Because I think it's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, for one thing, we reduced the cost of our speaker by sharing the cost.
That's right.
So, and they can be expensive. How much do we pay Joe Michaelak? 500?
I think, yeah, he was like very reasonable, but yeah, I think it's 500.
So if we can spend 250 instead of 500, great.
And we'll also get a update on the DPR form scanning process.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we have laid out our agenda for the next meeting. This has been a very effective meeting. Any further business or items from anyone? Then I would like to call adjournment of today's meeting and thank you all for attending. There's one last item that's informal and just outside of the meeting. And, Andy, we, are sad that you are leaving because, we have fun together.
Right, I got one.
And I've never had any other staffer but you.
That's true. That's true. Now you've met Matthew, and I'm sure you'll all get along famously.
So, let's see. Matthew, could you, help out for a second?
Yeah.
We've got a little something for you and we have a stash of it. Okay, it's on the way in this.
Oh,
So just if you bear with,
okay.
I didn't want this to be included in the formal minutes.
Right, right.
Because it's not the public's business. This is our time.
Can you end the recording, Fernanda? Thank you.